All right, good evening. Welcome to the State College Area School District Board meeting. I'd like to call on Jonathan Bucher to make a few comments.
Before we begin the board reorganization meeting, I'd like to welcome a very special guest. Nathan Maines is the Chief Executive Officer of the Pennsylvania School Boards Association. He is with us this evening to make a special presentation. Nathan, if you would, please come to the podium.
Evening, everybody.
Evening.
Thank you. It's been a little while since I was able to join you, so thanks for having me back. Apparently, it wasn't so bad the last time. I'm here tonight to recognize an individual who will be joining our All Wine Society. Let me give you just a little bit of background, and then it'll be my pleasure to honor them. The All Wine Society was created by PSBA in 2011 to honor the late Timothy Allwine. Tim was and is still considered in Harrisburg perhaps the most passionate, effective advocate in the area of public education. And so with his untimely passing, there was a movement to create a society that would recognize other passionate public education advocates and their work in helping to advance the cause of public education. To date, since 2011, PSBA has inducted only 15 people into the All Wine Society, so it's not an easy thing to be a part of. It is actually reviewed. Applications and recommendations are reviewed by fellow All Wine Society members, and I can tell you they're a pretty tough crowd to get by, so they take it seriously. Tonight, I am here to induct our 16th ever member of the All Wine Society, and I am pleased to welcome Jackie Huff to the All Wine Society. She was nominated by 3 school directors, Amy here at the State College Board, along with Laura Johnson, who's a school director at the Pottstown School District, and Dr. Karen Beck-Pooley, who's a school director at the Bethlehem Area School District, and also a 2022 inductee into the All Wine Society. All 3 of them, in their letters of recommendation and nomination, cited your passion for public education, your ongoing fight for increased equitable funding for all public schools, as a rationale for being inducted into the All Wine Society. Let me quote from it quickly for everybody. Quote, "Jackie is a clear voice in her community and around the state that all students in Pennsylvania deserve access to a high-quality public education, and she energetically leads the way, bringing others along in this journey of advocacy." As you all know, because you work with her every day, she's worked tirelessly for the Level Up and Basic Ed funding increases, and we have had some success in those areas over the last couple of years, and has an ongoing efforts here in the local community to make sure that every legislator understands the issues and how they impact not just the State College Area School District, but public education as a whole. And so in recognition of her passion, her dedication, her tireless work in public education, I am honored to be able to welcome you as the 16th member of our All Wine Society. Congratulations. So as a part of this, a couple of things happen here. One is, of course, you know, it wouldn't be PSBA if we didn't have a lapel pin for everything, right? So we have for you an All Wine Society lapel pin. Of course, you've got to have a certificate of recognition, but I think beyond this, the coolest thing that they do for this is on the wall in our downtown Harrisburg advocacy headquarters, they have individual steel plaques with the names of the previous 15 recipients, each individually attached, and now we're going to be honored to add yours as the 16th plaque to that wall, recognizing our advocacy champions. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yep. You want us-
What do you want? Oh,
Where do you want us?
yeah. Oh, okay. I don't want to take up too much time, but I just want to say thank you so much to PSBA and to those who nominated me. There's a lot of work to do, and I really appreciate all the support I get from this board, as well as the community and how willing people are to listen to me when I really want to talk their ear off about education funding issues. So just thank you very much.
And thank you for giving us a couple of minutes. I know you've got a full agenda tonight, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Maines, and congratulations, Jackie. Even though Mr. Johnson could not be here physically this evening, I know he joins me in congratulating you on this outstanding achievement. We are proud to have you as part of this district while advocating on behalf of the public schools across the state of Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much. All right, and with that, I guess I would like to call to order the meeting of the reorganization meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors this December 4th of 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so tonight, before we begin board reorganization, I would like to welcome the Honorable Brian K. Marshall and ask him to come to the podium to preside over the swearing-in of our newly elected school board members.
Thank you. It's my privilege and honor to be here to swear in the new members tonight who were successful in the most recent election. For those 5 who are to be sworn in, if you would, please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn. Repeat after me. I solemnly swear or affirm that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and that I will discharge the duties of my office as school board director with fidelity. Congratulations, all of you.
Thank you so much, Judge Marshall. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come and be with us this evening. Please know you're welcome to leave if you wish. All right, at this time, and also I just want to say thank you to the new board members. It's really lovely to have you here, and I really look forward to working with you all, as we all do. Mm-hmm. At this time, we will be electing a temporary president to preside over the reorganization this evening. Is there a nomination for temporary president?
I nominate Carleen Crevecore.
Second.
Thank you so much. Are there any other nominations? Could I please get a motion to close nominations then?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, those in favor of having Dr. Crevecore preside over the reorganization, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. All right, the nominations are closed. So that was just to close the Oh, I did it wrong. Screwed it up. Okay. That's okay. We already all agreed that you're the person to do it. So, all right. In that case, I will turn over to Dr. Crevecore.
Thank you so much. So I'm just basically going to just tell you how this process is going to go. First, I will ask for nomination for president, and then I'll get a second. And then after that, the nominee will get a 1 to 2 minute time to give a speech on why they want to run, why they want to represent, why they want to be president. And then I'm going to have discussion among the board members. And then we're going to go for the second nominee. And we're going to repeat the process. And they're going to get a chance to speak. And then we're going to have a discussion. And then after that, I'm going to have any public discussion. And then we're going to have a roll call. And the same procedure is going to be repeated for the vice president. Okay? So let's begin. And thank you so much, Jackie. Is there a nomination for the office of president?
I'd like to nominate Jackie Huff.
There's a second. Okay, at this time, Ms. Jackie Huff, could you mind giving us a 1 to 2 minute reason why you should be president and what you hope to accomplish?
Certainly. So I have an even briefer statement. I'd just like to say that during my tenure as president, I've strived to focus the attention of the board on the work that promotes learning for every student every day here at SCASD. We've gotten a lot accomplished in the past calendar year, and I would love to continue this work should the board elect me. No matter what position I end up in after this vote, I will continue to dedicate myself to SCASD and work to make every day better than the last.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, now we're gonna go, is there another nomination for president?
I'd like to nominate Amy Bader for the office of president.
Dr. Beta, now I would like to give you an opportunity to give a 1 to 2 minute speech on why you want the position and what you hope to accomplish.
Sure. I appreciate the nomination. As the district reenters a new phase of facility design and development, I would gladly bring my expertise in these areas to fulfilling the position. I really think high-quality buildings serve the needs of students and staff and are essential both to the educational environment and solid fiscal investment in district infrastructure. My hope would be to use that experience from the high school project and elementary buildings and Memorial Field to assist board leadership in moving through these upcoming projects smoothly. In my past 8 years on the board, I've served on every major committee and many of our citizens advisory councils, as well as serving on the negotiating team for each of our 3 bargaining units. Additionally, I served 4 years as vice president on the board. In all these various roles, I believe I have built positive relationships with a vast array of people in the district, staff, faculty, and administrators. Through the many change processes I've been a part of, I have gained skills and experience working on community engagement and communication of district priorities and goals. And in the variety of other roles as a school board member, I've striven to forge strong connections with teachers, staff, and principals in our building, as these are the boots on the ground people and fulfill our district's mission. Given the opportunity to serve as board president, my focus would be to work positively as a bridge between the board and the administration, and to represent the board and the district to the community in a forthcoming and open manner, and continue placing the needs of the students at the forefront of all I do. So thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion from the board? Yes, I recognize Gretchen.
I just wanted to explain my support for Dr. Bader in that I've worked with her for 8 years, and there is nobody else on this board, in my opinion, that knows more about the district than Dr. Bader. Not only because she remembers everything that she has heard in the past 8 years, but also I think being vice president for 4 years, she was able to get an inside knowledge into so many different details about the district that are really important in terms of leadership, in addition to the fact that she ultimately is open to hearing all, but will actually take a position on something, and that is a very important characteristic of a leader. I have served as vice president for the past year, and there have been many missed opportunities under the current leadership where I think Dr. Bader could have steered the ship or in a better way, or seen fires and put them out before they started, just because of experience. And so that is why I will be voting for Dr. Bader, and I just wanted to publicly explain my vote. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Are there any other nomination for president? Is there a motion to close the nomination?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of closing the nomination, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The nominations are closed. Now, at this point, I would like to know if there's any public comment. Okay.
Oh, there is
Oh, is
someone online who wants to.
Okay,
So it's Laurel.
okay.
So if you'd like to recognize Laurel.
I would like to recognize Laurel because I don't have.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
I certainly had not anticipated speaking tonight, but I do have to say in response to some of what I've just heard, that one of the biggest issues that this board is going to have to deal with is the change in the Delta program. And I am personally aware that uniquely among the current people on the board, Dr. Bader was aware of it because she had been in leadership for a long period of time before other board members as well as the community was aware of it. And I thought that was important to say publicly so that people are aware that that has been in progress for a long time and that board members were not aware of it.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing that we have 2 nominees for president, I would now like to call for a roll call of board members for Ms. Jackie Huff as the first nominee for president.
Dr. Anderson,
Yes.
Dr. Bader,
No.
Ms. Brandt,
No.
Dr. Buck,
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore,
Yes.
Dr. Demo,
No.
Ms. Huff,
Yes.
Mr. Colby,
No.
Dr. Miller.
No.
Okay.
So the motion fails.
Yeah, the motion has failed. So at this point, I would like to congratulate Dr. Bader as president.
Thank you.
Go ahead and
Yeah, I think you have to
Yeah.
have the vote
We have to
anyway.
have
We have to do a vote again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Bader,
Yes.
Ms. Brandt,
Yes.
Dr. Buck,
Point of clarification.
Yeah.
Now that one vote has failed, are people who voted for Ms. Huff able to vote in the affirmative?
Yes, they're two separate motions.
Okay. Yes,
so you're saying you're voting yes for,
for Dr. Bader.
Dr. Crevecore,
Yes.
Dr. Demo,
Yes.
Ms. Huff,
Yes.
Mr. Colby,
Yes.
Dr. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to congratulate again Dr. Bader as president.
Thank you. That was a very kind question, Peter. I appreciate it. I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to serve the board and SCASD in this role. And I first want to thank Jackie Huff for her committed service as president. I know this entire board is so grateful that you stepped up when the role became vacant almost a year ago. And doing so was no easy task. The board was nearing the end of a very involved superintendent search, which needed to be completed. And Jackie ensured that search was carefully wrapped up. And she helped lay a solid foundation for Mr. Johnson as he began as our official superintendent. And Jackie has been a key part of District New Beginnings this past year, including the work to update our strategic plan, as well as the district mission and vision statements. And we also appreciate the hard work you have done, Jackie, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Second, I just want to acknowledge this was a complex night as the board looks forward to the future. And what I want to call attention to is the good fortune of State College Area School District in having so many board members who are willing to make the necessary sacrifices to serve in leadership roles in any form that may take, including chairing committees and other initiatives. School director is not an easy job in and of itself, and volunteering to take on additional responsibility and commitment is to be commended. I know everyone at this table has excellent skills that would be valuable contributions to any leadership position. And I'm incredibly grateful for each and every one of you here for the care and diligence that you have and you will put into every task that comes before us. Our community is incredibly lucky to have this group who take their duties with seriousness and deep care. And I'm very honored to serve with all of you. And I look forward to continuing the good work of serving the students and families of our district as a team.
I would like to also add that I really appreciate Ms. Jackie Huff as president for the time that she did with us. I felt really part of the board. I felt included. I didn't feel like my opinions, even though they may have differed with hers, was dismissive. I thought that she treated everyone very fair and very open, and for that I really thank you because I think those are very important characteristics to have as a leader. Is Does anybody want to add anything? Okay.
I'm so sorry. I just want to say I'm looking forward to working with you, Amy. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we're going to elect our vice president. Is there a nomination for the office of vice president? Yes.
I'd like to nominate Dr. Anderson.
Is there a second? At this time, I would like to give you, Dr. Anderson, an opportunity to give a 1 to 2 minute speech on why you want the position and what you hope to achieve.
Thanks. First of all, just thank you for the nomination. I am honored to be asked, and I would be happy to serve if I am elected. I'm interested in a leadership position for similar reasons that I ran for the school board in the first place. I am deeply interested in the well-being of all of our SCASD students, and other people whom I deeply respect have asked me to become involved in board leadership. I think we as a collective board make better decisions if we consider all points of view during the deliberative process. Every member of our board brings a different and valuable perspective to the table, and utilizing all of those skills and experiences will make us a stronger team for the benefit of our students and the district as a whole. As a board leader, I will listen to all board members equally, and I will try to look for points of agreement, and I will act as a facilitator and support the collective majority view of the board, even if that differs from my own point of view. But to be clear, if I have a point of view, I will share it with you, and I think that you're expecting that, given my time that I've served so far. My leadership experiences as finance chair or co-chair, and also working on the SCA negotiation team, helped me to develop a pretty good working relationship with the superintendent and other senior administrators, something that, as Amy said, is essential for successful board leadership. If elected, I look forward to working with all of you on the board, with the administration, and with members of the whole SCASD community to help advance the goals of our district and to put the needs of our students first. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from the board? Okay, is there another nomination for vice president? Okay, then we will close the nomination. Is there a motion to close the nomination?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of closing the nomination, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the nominations are closed. Is there any public comment? Okay, so do we have to take a roll call vote? Okay,
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Kovapor?
yes.
Dr. Demo? Yes. Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
I'd like to congratulate Dr. Anderson as vice president.
Thank you. I don't need to say anymore.
If I move?
Okay.
Did I move? Yeah, I'll just do this. Fine. I see your pen too. Oh, jeez. I'll miss you.
Sorry, I thought I was supposed to go there.
So I'm gonna cross this off as you.
For sure.
Oh, okay, yeah. My hands were full. Okay. The next item on our agenda tonight are the 2024 annual appointments. This is shown in attachment 3A. Board members, please take a moment to review the roles provided. So, and when you're done that, I will be open to a request for a motion to accept the appointments as listed on the agenda.
So moved.
That's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Is there any discussion on this item? Actually, I do. So, prior to our vote this evening, I was asked to chair the policy committee, and I'm certainly happy to continue doing that, but I think it's a great opportunity for another board member to take on a leadership role. And I see some people eyeing some people, but we'll leave that open. I think we can discuss that, and that's an easy change we can make at a later date. So I just wanted to throw that out there for people to think about as an opportunity, and we can approve the list as it is tonight. But I think if someone is willing to step up to that leadership role, I'd be very happy to step aside. So that's my discussion. Are there any public comments?
So Dr. Bader, just a point of clarification. There aren't actually any chairs listed on the list.
Oh, okay.
So the committees will get to elect their own chair.
Oh, great. That's
Yeah.
fine.
So,
Apologies.
which, yeah, it's confusing because of the iterations we went through.
Yeah.
But yes.
That's right.
And also, I would like to point out that under community engagement, it says board president. So if we could just amend that to say Dr. Bader. And I don't know if we need to motion that. You know.
Okay. Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Trevor?
Yes.
Dr. Dino?
Yes.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Brand?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passed. Next up, we have agenda item 3B is a list of the 2024 school board meeting dates, and these dates reflect the board's practice to meet on the first and third Monday of each month, except where noted. Meetings will continue to be held at 7 p.m. here in the boardroom at Panorama Village Administrative Building, and I'd be open to a motion for,
So moved.
thank you.
Second.
So that's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion? Okay. Is there any public comment? All right, then we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Trevor?
Yes.
Dr. Dino? Yes. Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Brand?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Okay, so that motion is passed. I'd like to request a motion to adjourn the reorganization meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay? All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. All right.
Picture time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We have a picture to take. So if the
Oh.
public will forgive us for a moment. Maybe I can have 30 seconds. Yeah. We'll get started here in 1 second. Okay. So I'd like to call to order the December 4th Committee of the Whole and regular board meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. I'd like to welcome everyone joining us in person this evening and those viewing remotely. And board members with the agenda before you, do you have any changes? Okay, seeing none. I'd like to now call on the board secretary for a roll call of members.
Dr. Anderson.
Here.
Dr. Bader.
Here.
Ms. Brandt.
Here.
Dr. Buck.
Here.
Dr. Crevecoeur.
Here.
Dr. Demo. Here. Ms. Huff.
Here.
Mr. Colby.
Here.
Dr. Miller.
Here.
Okay. First up, we have communications, and we'll have a superintendent update from Assistant Superintendent Dr. Bucher, who's filling in for Mr. Johnson this evening.
On behalf of Mr. Johnson and myself, I'd like to take time to congratulate our incoming board members who are sworn in this evening. I greatly appreciate your dedication to the district and students, and for all your unwavering commitment to improving public education. I look forward to working with you in this capacity. The Board of Directors will be hosting 3 more board conversations with the community this school year. All events are open opportunities for anyone in the community to connect with board members on any district-related topic they choose. The next event will be held on Monday, December 18th from 5 to 7 p.m. in Panorama Village Boardroom. This time will also offer the community an opportunity to review and provide input on the Mount Nittany Elementary project.
Thank you, Dr. Bucher. Stephen, do you have any student initiatives you'd like to share with us tonight?
Yes, I do, thank you. Congratulations to the Mount Nittany Middle School Quiz Bowl teams for their championship performances at the Thinking Cap Quiz Bowl Fall 2023 competition. The 6th grade team topped 62 teams from across the country with a score of 1,257. Not to be outdone, the 8th grade team also scored first place nationally out of 119 teams with a score of 1,278. As someone who did Quiz Bowl myself, that is very, very impressive and bright young generation coming in. Congratulations to our mid-pen all-conference selections, crossing a variety of sports and disciplines, and congratulations to our early signees at the high school. We wish you the best with your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thanks. And do we have any other communications before we go on down the agenda? Yeah, Dr. Demo, I thought you had one.
Yeah. If I may, as the new SCASD representative for the CIU as of today, I wanted to share a reminder about a Zoom event this week being organized by the Central Intermediate Units Transition Council. They will be hosting a Zoom event this Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. on post-secondary education, which will feature representatives from college and university disability services offices, as well as information about financial aid. And if you have questions, you could email echapman@ciu10.org.
Thank you. Next up, we have legislative update. Jackie, do you have anything you'd like to share?
I have nothing to share.
Okay, thanks. And then next we have a COG update. Peter and Gretchen, anything to share?
I have one item
Okay.
that I thought the SCASD community would be interested in an update about. A while back, I gave in the COG update a report about the purchasing of a food truck for the swimming pools, and that has now changed. So the cost of that would have been $132,000, and it was decided by the new director and the Parks Authority that a better idea would be 2 mobile carts so that each pool would have a food cart, so to say, all the time, rather than one being shared between the 2 pools. And the 2 food carts, the cost would not exceed $25,000. So it'll have, the next question I know is what food will they have? They will have the same types of things that are sold at like concessions throughout the parks, which is hot dogs, hamburgers, chips, things like that. So it will provide a need because through the survey, they knew that there was a need, that pool patrons wanted access to be able to buy food at the pools, but it'll be for both pools rather than one. And also just in terms of staffing the food truck, it was difficult to try to envision that actually being able to happen. So this is a nice, less expensive proposal, and hopefully we will have access to food at both pools this summer. That's all.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
At this time, we have time for public comment. Each individual will be allotted up to 3 minutes for items related to board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. For action items, public comment is held just prior to voting on that item as required by school code. If additional time is necessary, the board may consider reopening public comment after board business is completed or during the next meeting. As a reminder, public comment is a chance for community members to share their thoughts with the board. It is not a time for the board to answer questions or engage in conversations, and you can always email the board at all-board@scasd.org. So is there anyone present in the audience tonight that would like to make a public comment? Okay, seeing none, do we have anyone online who is interested in making a public comment? Okay. So we'll move on to information reports. First up, we have Finance Committee. I'd like to call on Mr. Brown and Mr. Vigilone to provide an overview of the 2022-2023 draft financial statements.
Okay, as we're getting seated, we want to thank you for this opportunity. We met in Finance Committee last week with our auditors to go over the financial statements in a little bit more detail. But tonight we have Mr. John Taylor from Baker Tilly. We've worked with John for quite a number of years, and he and a variety of other individuals from the firm Baker Tilly and other firm names in the past have worked on our audits as they've gone through different company changes. So I'll let Mr. Taylor walk us through the highlights of the financial statements, and then this will be an action item at your next board meeting on the 18th, which is required that the board do accept the annual financial reports, and then that allows us to complete our final step in our annual financial reporting, where we file for the public information, and that's related to our debt. So, Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Randy. And thank you, SCASD School Board, for the opportunity to be the independent auditors of the district, and to be able to report the results of our audit this evening. So as Randy said, we did meet with the Finance Committee last week and covered the audit process, as well as did a flip through of the financial statements in detail. So if you would like me to get into more detail than what I'm going to cover in the highlights this evening, I'm willing to do that. But the audit is complete. As Randy said, we are in advance of the filing that's required at the end of the month with your bondholders. That needs to be uploaded to the EMMA, the Electronic Municipal Market Access Site, by 12/27 to be in accordance with your bond documents. The audit went well. We received full cooperation from all the employees in the district that are involved in the audit process. From an audit results standpoint, we issued 2 opinions in our financial statements. The first opinion is on the financial statements themselves. We're prepared to issue an unmodified or clean opinion that the district's financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The second opinion that we provide is on the compliance with your major federal program spending and the requirements of those programs, and that also we are prepared to issue an unmodified opinion. We did audit 2 programs as major this year, your IDEA dollars that you spent, as well as your ESSER dollars that were spent. So both of those major programs were, we found that the district was complying with the requirements of those programs. From a internal control standpoint, we're happy to report that there are no weaknesses, deficiencies, or non-compliance of any kind to report to the board, or that is going to appear within those financial statements. In terms of financial position, the general fund balance ended the June 30, 2023 year at approximately $51.6 million. Of that, approximately $50 million is what we would consider unrestricted. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends that a district keep as unrestricted or have as unrestricted approximately 2 months worth of general fund budgeted expenditures, and State College School District's unrestricted fund balance is in excess of those recommended levels, so that's a good thing. In terms of your budget versus actual results for the year, and that appears, that statement. That statement appears on page 18 of the audit. Both in looking at your revenues and your expenditures, both of those total actual results were favorable compared to your budget. So district is spending their funds as they're budgeting within their budgeted expenditures, and you're raising your funds within what you're budgeting. Just want to thank Randy and his team. You know, they really do a great job running the business of the district, and they're good to work with. And does anyone have any questions or would like me to go into further detail?
Any questions from board members? We had a really good, healthy discussion in committee about all this, and really appreciated your time being there for both that committee and this evening. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Debbie.
That's okay. I was just going to say basically the same thing. Thank you for your work, and thank you to Randy and Joe and the whole team for all of that. It's a very good opinion, and it's what we expect to see, but we're always happy to see what we expect to see. So,
For those, if I could just add that for those that aren't familiar, an unmodified opinion is what we want. Modified means that the audit team has made changes to the statements that the district has presented. So we are very excited. Thank you for your kind comments. It does take a village. We have a great accounting team, and we're so very glad that Joe has become part of that team, as well as getting caught up to speed so quickly. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
So next we'll move on with Mr. Brown and Mr. Vigilante to provide an update on the 2024-2025 budget development process.
Thank you. Thanks. So Mr. Vigilante is going to move through the slides, but I'll try to move quickly through those, giving you ample time for questions and clarification. Again, we made a presentation to the Finance Committee last week about our budget development and our preliminary budget. That's linked in the presentation that's on your agenda tonight as well, for your ease of locating. The board has 2 decision points. The first would be to approve a proposed preliminary budget, or to accept an accelerated budget opt-out resolution. The deadline for that is not January 14th, it's January 4th. I apologize for that error. We are recommending at this time that you would approve an accelerated budget opt-out resolution, and that will be on your December 18th agenda unless you provide advice otherwise. We've included a example of the accelerated opt-out resolution from last year. We are working on preparing one for this year as well. What is that opt-out resolution? It tells the community that any real estate tax rate increase would be maintained within the Act 1 index, which for 24-25 is 5.3%. It complies with budget adoption rules in school code, and it says that that therefore we would not be eligible to use any Act 1 referendum exceptions, which I'm not aware that we are eligible for any this year anyways. The Act 1 index is calculated by averaging the percent increase in the Pennsylvania statewide average weekly wage and the federal employment cost index for elementary and secondary schools. I just shared that quickly so that people have a basis of understanding. There's much available out on the Pennsylvania Department of Education's website. There's more information in our Finance Committee agenda from last time. As I said, why approve the resolution? It provides the notice to the community that of your intent to maintain the tax rate within the index, that you will not apply for exceptions. It does not set the tax rate, just to be clear. The tax rate would be approved with the final budget. That is in June, typically. Although not all organizations within the state that set a budget complete that process in
Such
the
as
month
the
of June.
state.
Yes. It allows the board to consider administrative recommendations during the budget development process. And the state budget approval deadline is June 30th. Proposed preliminary budget, there are 3 options presented in your attachments this evening. One is at 0%, one is at 2%, and one is at 5.3% tax rate increases. The impacts of the level of use of committed fund balance and projected negative shortfalls in the multi-year projection are provided. The prior 3-year tax rate increases most recently were 4.1%, then 3.4%, which were both the Act 1 indexes. And then not only was 21-22 a 0% increase or no change, but also 2021. We've shown a graph for you to show you the actual increases or decreases that have occurred over time since the creation of the Act 1 index. We're showing you the Act 1 index over time, and then we're also showing a trend line and that trend line, Mr. Vigilone, is of the Act 1 index or of our actual increases?
The blue dotted trend line is of our actual increases. The orange line is the Act 1 index with the dotted line.
Thank you. And then, again, we have 3 different tax increase options. We are not making any recommendation or suggestions at this time. We still have a lot of work not only to do internally, but also with you as the board. But we're just giving you some boundaries. 0 would be obviously the lowest unless you actually wanted to decrease the tax rate. 5.3 would be the highest under the opt-out. And then 2% was what we've historically called our average, our 5-year historical average. However, as we want to introduce, and we did in committee, 2.5% is really more of the actual average, and so we'll be modifying that in our presentation on December 18th and showing you that impact.
Thank you.
The multi-year fund balance projection, here, the 3 different lines shows that the blue line would be if there was 0 tax increase in 24-25. The middle line, or orange, is if there was a 2%, and then the highest line, yellow with the X's, is if there was a 5.3% tax increase. Again, this assumes that there are no other changes in the budget, in those projections, in those out years. And obviously, I'm sure that many board members here would have heard this before, but I'm still going to say it. The administration, while I'm working here, would never allow for a budget projection recommendation to expect in the out years that the fund balance would continue to drop. We would make changes year after year. And I'm sure that Mr. Vigilone feels the same way as well as your superintendent. So tonight we are presenting this information to you for the Finance Committee as part of the Committee of the Whole. On the 18th, we'll ask you to consider the opt-out resolution unless you advise otherwise tonight. And then there'll be another, in January, both meetings, we expect that there'll be additional information that we'll present to you. At a minimum, we'll expect to speak about the budget development process at the Committee of the Whole meeting each month until June. There will also be multiple conversations in the month of May when there is additional required discussions and action. I hope that was helpful.
Absolutely. Any questions from board members? Dr. Buck?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Buck.
I think I must have gone into
We're all a little-
into outer space or something there. So slide 11, because that is I want to look at this slide as a not scary object. And you said something about it, and I think it's really, would you explain again why you show this? What is the general fund? Why do you show this slide? And what do you want us to pay attention to?
So this slide is always very important. We cannot develop a budget at 1 year at a time. We must look at multiple years and projection years. The reason we do that is because what this shows is the impact of a tax increase or not in the out years. A tax increase does not impact just 1 year, but it affects multiple years. And so that's why we show this slide. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
And obviously what my other statement was is that as we go through our $190 million budget projection, we will continue to look for ways to not incur expenses or for smarter and better ways to incur expenses. But because we are people-driven, because we are providing a service for students, and many of those needs are growing each and every year, especially over the last several years, we need to monitor this, and this is just a way that our general fund is our operating fund. We have capital funds, we have a food service fund, we have a printing fund, but general fund is what pays the bills, it's what educates the students. And so fund balance is the monies that are left over at the end of every year. And so if we have a declining fund balance, then that means there are less monies available in those out years.
But just to be clear, that is not what is ordained to happen.
Correct.
Right.
It's just a projection.
Correct. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. I think that concludes the Finance Committee reports.
And we'll be back on the 18th with a motion for you to accept the opt-out resolution and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. So up next, we have Facilities and Grounds Committee reports. Next, we'll call on Mr. Randy Brown, joined by Mike Fisher and Mr. Jeff Straub and Ms. Madison Rima, who's with us from Crabtree, Rohrbaugh, to provide an update on the district-wide facilities master plan. And
I've asked Ms. Yoder to join us.
Absolutely. We always like to see Ms. Yoder.
Just need a minute here.
No problem.
These next two agenda items are somewhat connected, and so many of the folks here at the table we're all working on one or both of these projects. I'd actually like to start with the Mount Nittany Elementary project first. And I apologize, I need to pull out my notes. And I need to switch. Go. Slideshow. Beginning. All right, here we go. So, Mr. Straub, Ms. Renna, Mr. Fisher, and Ms. Yoder and I are working very closely together, not only on the Mount Nittany Elementary project, but then also the district-wide facility master plan. Dr. Bucher and the secondary team are going to be ramping up their work as they join us on the district-wide facility master plan as well. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting some volume out tonight. My children would have been pleased for an evening like this. The design team we want to present a update on both the Mount Nittany Elementary project and the district-wide facility master plan processes. Although these are two very different projects, they are related and have similar components, as well as similar steps that are being undertaken. Mount Nittany project design is moving forward well as design is presented tonight. The master plan is a little slower, however, involves additional planning that we'll be getting to soon. So we thank Mr. Straub and Ms. Renna. They were with us for most of the day today. They were in some of our buildings furthering their work, and then they spent much of the afternoon with Mr. Fisher and myself. So we'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to Mr. Straub.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Okay, we're going to move into the agenda. And tonight is going to be a bit of a refinement of what you've seen previously. Initially, for most notably, when you see Mount Nittany Elementary School, at a first glance, the plan's not going to look dramatically different, but there's been a lot of integration of stakeholders over the last 2 months since we last spoke to you. And it's those small nuances of, for instance, when we're meeting with a special education, whether it's autistic or what are the needs for technology in the building you know, IDF closets, things of that nature. How do we integrate faculty restrooms or student restrooms, things like that. All those nuances, sort of taking it to the next level that we've integrated. We're going to talk a little bit about the current schedule. What are some of the behind the scenes, whether it be surveys, geotechnical, the engagement I mentioned, and then as Mr. Brown mentioned, we're also moving on that process with the district-wide study. A little bit slower. We've been, I think a lot of the focus has been on Mount Nittany, most notably for the last month, where the study is more setting the groundwork because it's a much larger process than what we're engaging with Mount Nittany, which is more of a very set program with a classroom wing. Okay.
And if I could just iterate before Jeff moves on, that again, and I'm going to probably repeat this every board meeting, we are presenting design floor plans. The design floor plans are to be held internally as a safety protocol. We are presenting them on screen tonight, but I would ask that anyone in attendance or would not take photos or videos of those slides, and that CNET will not be displaying those out on there as well. That's just a new safety protocol that is very different than when we built the high school project in the last 3 elementaries. But this is what Mr. Straub has said as other districts are doing, as well as has been recommended by our SROs.
Fortunately, a different process than what we've had in previous years. Okay, so this is an update of the schedule. It's a little blurry up there on the screen, but probably the takeaway is there's a red line in the month of December right now, and so we're coming to a close of the first phase, or what's sometimes called the 30% design review or schematics for the project. We've confirmed the scope of the project, whether it be with administration, faculty, reaching out to community, PTO, things of that nature. And now that floor plan has been resolved, we can now start engaging other design team members beyond the architectural, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural engineers, food service consultant. And so all those team members are starting to come on board the project as we now have a base Revit 3-dimensional model of the building that they can start building off of, and then meeting with district personnel for those next components. We're also starting to begin the Plan-Con process, and we're going to probably
talk about that later.
We're going to talk about that a little bit more detail later. There's a nuance to that. Frankly, it has to do with the one comment earlier about the state budget and a possible opportunity. We don't want to make any promises, but normally, if it was a full Plan-Con process, at this stage we would simply prepare the documents for submission to the Department of Education. But because of the moratorium, we're going to be completing that process, even though the state has a moratorium in place, and we'll talk about that more later. And then we're just also starting not only the building for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, or structural, or food service. I'm picking on a few of the big items, but we're also starting to have conversations with whether it be land development, code approvals, things of that nature of the project, trying to create a strong process and communication back and forth so that hopefully we will streamline those approvals in the in the future moving forward. Okay. So these are some of the first steps that are complete right now. And actually, this is just to build off of a slide that we presented to you a few months ago. At the time, we were confirming the educational program with the administration and faculty. We were inputting as-built conditions, surveying the existing building, site survey. I think last time we spoke to you, the survey crews were on site. That not only is the site survey complete, but now the site survey has been fully integrated into the computer, which takes a quite amount of time for that to occur. And now the civil engineers and landscape architects can start integrating preliminary site layouts for the project. Geotechnical subsurface borings are also complete. They were also in process just before we met with you previously. I'm happy to say that the initial report came back that there is no substantial subsurface issues at the building currently. I would note, and people have brought up that there's currently a sinkhole between two of the classroom wings. We are aware of that. They did look at that along with the civil engineers. We will be addressing that as part of the project, more than likely with a flowable fill, but that does not have any substantial impact on where we're looking at the addition moving forward. And then again, we've completed the educational specifications and we've evolved the proposed floor plan. Next slide. Okay. And so this is where we stand right now, and I think again we're going to be building the addition towards the rear of the site, essentially adding a third classroom wing to the building, as well as a south wing that's predominantly small group instruction and special education support, along with a centralized new lobby, as well as a cafeteria and kitchen and receiving complex. And then if we move to the next slide, what we wanted to do was have a side-by-side comparison. So on the left is, and when we were preparing the PowerPoint in the last couple of weeks, actually the administration, we always go back and forth proofing things, and the comment was, well, what's the purpose of the slide? And I think the purpose is there's quite a lot of differences in these two floor plans, but at first glance, it looks like the same plan. But on the left is where we were 2 months ago at the beginning of October, and on the right is where we are right now. So generally, the third classroom wing is essentially the same layout, a grouping of 6 classrooms. In the south wing is special education, and then we have the cafeteria and kitchen and receiving. But as the next slide is going to zoom in much more detail. But what you're now seeing is much more refinement in each of those areas. So whether we're looking at the classroom wing, the blue wing for the classrooms, what are the lockdown procedures for those? How are we integrating adult bathrooms or unisex bathrooms? What is the main, how do you move from the cafeteria over to the student bathrooms? Off of the main lobby, we've integrated a STEM classroom. That was a lot of discussion about adding that as additional program. And then on that main lobby, having an open collaborative area. We're still defining exactly what that would be with all the stakeholders in the district. But having the music, instrumental, the STEM classroom, the cafeteria, all on that centralized area, and then how can you lock down that to be utilized after use? As well as the cafeteria, we're starting to look at the kitchen, how would receiving be brought into the building. On the south wing, having a secondary access for that, so that students could be brought in, if need be, with multiple disabilities, into the building, and then either brought to classrooms in that area or then taken out further into the building. We're focusing more on the addition here, but we've also been having discussions throughout the building, converting the previous kitchen to a larger faculty room. That's been a concern for years. some additional receiving, and then how do we accommodate storage throughout the building, as well as some modest modifications in the main office at the front of the building. So those were some of the off to the just some bullet points off to the right. I sort of just generally went through each of those components, but I want to focus on again a lot of stakeholder engagement. While a lot of it's been sort of within a senior administrative team, there's also been meetings at the schools with staff, building administration at that level, as well as some presentations to the PTO and feedback. Generally, it's a straightforward program, but there is a lot of nuances just trying to vet everything out and be clear of that so that we don't miss any opportunities to address things at this early stage of the project. Okay.
Jeff, I had a quick question. I don't know if any
Yes.
other board members do. If you could go back to the slide with all three wings, I just wondered if you or maybe Ms. Yoder could just, I know that there's stipulations about how much special ed can be together, and I noticed the shift that we've got, if green is some of our special ed rooms. I just wondered if you could share a little bit of thought process of how that's going to work and be beneficial would be maybe really great.
So, and we can, and Heather is here tonight too, because when at first look, it looks like we have them all in one single hallway. But with the specialized classrooms, so there is actually special education in almost every hallway, or there will be with learning support, emotional support, the different types of special education. So within the halls with the different green, we will still have classrooms that are within the ebb and the flow. With the two inclusive classrooms, the multi-disability and then the inclusive autistic room, we really wanted to put them together, and it's not that far off when we walked and we really looked at it. And like I said, I can certainly have Heather, we've checked this to make sure that it aligns with the state, it is acceptable. But to give them some shared resources, a bathroom area in between, and again, the sensory room has been near and dear to me. Randy will probably tell you that we needed to help. We want that for all students, so that is down there. It's labeled as a special education room, but ultimately we are hoping that is a room that any student can utilize. But there will be specialized equipment to really support the needs if we're putting the multi-disabilities classroom in there due to some of the equipment that they need as well. Heather, do you want to add anything, just from the legal standpoint?
Yeah, and I can just add that we met with Shannon and I from the Bureau of Special Education very, very early on in the process to show her the original design to ensure that she didn't have any concerns.
Great, I appreciate it. I had no doubt. I know that Heather's really diligent about that, but I just thought it's informative for our community to understand the whys of where some are clustered, but not all are clustered. And it certainly makes a lot of sense to utilize certain spaces for multiple groups. So thanks for that, just kind of making it clear for the community.
If I could just add that,
Yeah.
as Mr. Straub said, in front of the cafeteria where there's a red arrow, that will be what we'll call the secondary entrance. And we're hoping to have that lobby area and do something new to our elementary schools, and that is install gates that can section off the building so that there are fields outside there, and so we can get away from eventually all of the portable bathrooms, and then have the building open for certain events, but we can have it gated off so that the entire building isn't exposed to those visitors. And the bathrooms are right inside there. They can have access at times for a cafeteria. And then there's also an additional entrance that may be down closer, right out across from the autistic and the multiple disabilities room, that we have the option of taking students in and out of that entrance as well. So we've really tried to be inclusive and think forward and out of the box. We're modeling a lot of the things that are in our last three elementary projects, but we're also expanding our thinking and trying to move forward with that. An example of moving forward is STEM. STEM was not as special when we built those buildings, so we want to have that special location in addition to the 4 deep at each grade level, and then adding the instrumental classroom. as well as providing the separate cafeteria and multipurpose or gymnasium. And then as Mr. Straub said, the faculty room is not sufficient as the building is staffed now, let alone when we add additional staff. That's why we're proposing that a large portion of the current kitchen area is in that location. There are still some other services like nursing and counseling that we're trying to further refine, but we believe that we're ready to move forward with this design, and it's not that this design is not going to be modified and changed. It will continue to go through. And for those that remember the high school project, there was a lot of changes between 30, 60, and 90%.
Thanks. Anybody else have a quick question on the grid? Yeah, Mr.
do.
Colby?
So, and I apologize, I haven't been in Mount Nittany Elementary yet. Is that new wing the only portion of the school that's going to have gender-neutral bathrooms? Or
No.
Are there some in the other hallways as well? Great, thank you.
Correct. And that is something that will be evolving throughout the project. So one other thing I wanted to note from that one slide. Yeah, stay on this just for a second. My second to last bullet item is PD designations. And I'm going to pick on the STEM classroom that Mr. Brown just mentioned a second ago. Even though PlanCon is in moratorium right now, we still have to go through an Act 34 process for setting an upper limit set by no, actually
cost.
for cost set by in law by in 1973. Some of that is you maximize the cost for a project by having certain designations, and it becomes real critical at elementary schools. So unfortunately, STEM is not an acknowledged program by the Department of Education, at least for planning construction. So you'll notice later in plans, while that is going to be a STEM classroom, we're designating it large group instruction because that has capacity at the state level. We'll be doing that through other components, small group instructions, making sure they meet certain square footage requirements, just so that we're trying to set the groundwork now so then we get the later steps. We don't create difficulties for the project, okay? Okay, we spoke about geotech very briefly. Again, these were the borings that occurred for where the construction is going to occur. The red is the building addition, the blue is for stormwater retention and again, I'm happy to say, knock on wood, no major issues at this time. Part of that's because we're predominantly putting a one-story addition, but also the soil conditions. We don't have to be spending substantial money underground, which we ran into a few times on some of the other projects in the past years. Okay. This is now, the next is, and this is, I think, a new slide for well, I guess some of these slides are new to the new board members. Welcome, everybody. But we really had been focusing on the building addition previously. We have now started to branch not only on from the addition, but how do we look at the campus for the project. Specifically, as Mr. Brown mentioned, we have the main entrance of the building, but we're going to have the secondary entrance as well off the side of the building now. We have to have access down to that and then to the kitchen and service for the building, but it also presents an opportunity to potentially having a loop around the two fields currently. And right now, we're showing that as potentially as a parent drop-off. There's been some discussions about bus. I think really we're a little bit early in the game. We're still having stakeholders of building administration, your security resource officer, everybody involved in those discussions, and how, will we fully integrate this in the project, and how will it be utilized? But that's something that we're investigating right now. Yes, sir.
So since I see that you're working on kind of the campus level now, I noticed in the two slides comparing the previous and the current design, it looked like the footprint of the building changed a little bit. And I just wondered if between the 30, 60, and 90, if you would anticipate any other changes, or if you think now that you're working on the campus, it's kind of set where it's going to be.
Knock on wood.
Okay.
And I say that because I would assume at this point it's a pretty flushed out design. We've had everybody involved in that. And I don't anticipate any large changes in this program. The only reason I knock on wood is we saw that on the elementaries and the high school on a few occasions. We did see some big changes later in some discussions that came out of community meetings. I don't anticipate that here. What I more anticipate going from the 30 to the 60 to the 90 is more of the refinement at this point of exactly how do we lay out all the bathrooms or unisex bathrooms. Do we need to provide some additional ones throughout the building? And how does that compare against other buildings in the district? How is IT or storage accommodated? Those are some more modest changes. Some of the changes that occurred in the last 2 months is, for instance, that south wing stretched a little bit just because we had to accommodate square footages, whether it be in the programs for special education or trying to hit certain square footages to meet Department of Education standards that I mentioned.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll also add that this is not just going to be a building project. It's also going to end up encompassing some field work. First of all, what's called the play field just to the right, that's kind of encircled by that new loop. That is probably going to be the laydown area, construction laydown area for the project. And so once that's complete, then we're going to have to rework that field. Because of that, that field is used for physical education courses for the school. So we're looking at, if you go to the back side of this building, the what I call the panorama loop that is between all three buildings, that field is going to need some work to accommodate the activities that happen on that play field. There also will be some additional site work on the rest of the site, the campus that we're predicting. So all of the fields in that area may need to be have some excavation and site work done. So it is going to be an all-inclusive area. I know many of us think, wow, this is such a large campus, there's a lot of fields, but they're not level. They have an elevation to them. So we can't just put an additional play field or athletic field in wherever we want. So there needs to be some work. So we're trying to make it encompassing. I say that so that you all don't have the same panic attack that I did whenever I saw the first cost estimate. It's not just a 6-room addition that we're putting on. We're also allocating space for some of our highest need students. We're moving some high need students from another location in the district so that that building can benefit as well. And then we have this additional site work.
Yeah.
Mr. Buck.
Thank you. So a couple things. So if I remember right, the classrooms have not, the grades have not been assigned yet within the building. Is that right? Okay.
I will say kindergarten will most likely stay where it is now because their rooms are built with bathrooms. All of our kindergarten classrooms have bathrooms. So that area is not going to change, but the other classrooms are not going to change.
Great. That was I think there were a lot of questions about that in the CAC.
And actually, that was something that we actually went backwards. We were actually initially showing where all the classroom designators would be, and the building principal actually asked us to, and some of the team said, at this stage, let's make it more generic because we're still figuring out how we're going to move everything around, except for the kindergarten and first grade.
Right. And I think he was on the CAC with, who was with us on the CAC, Mike, when we were discussing, it doesn't matter. The other question is about the stormwater infrastructure. So you've done you have some geotechnical work, and then I don't see it, but is there going to be a new will there be new retention or infiltration basin or both?
The 3 blue designators right there were preliminary tests for stormwater.
Okay.
At that which is the existing stormwater pond that's behind the building right now.
Okay.
ELA, Todd Smith specifically with the team believes that can meet the requirements right now. He said that there might need to be some remediation at that that location right now that the soils aren't holding the water properly, and that might just be amending the soils that they weren't, they compacted over the time period, and some adjustments. It might need to be deeper. We're still investigating that. Some of the components that aren't, that's more focused directly on the addition. What we're just starting to investigate now is that loop road
Right,
out
which is
front
an add
in the
impervious,
field.
yeah.
That's a little bit different nuance, and we're not quite there yet.
And that would still feed into that same stormwater
We believe
system.
so, though some of the drainage is going the other direction on that side. So I don't have an answer for you on that piece right now. And some of it did come out of what Mr. Brown spoke of the contractors are going to be laying down on that side of the building. They're going to, unfortunately, damage that field in the process, so it's an opportunity to reconfigure that area.
So there will be increased, like, soil compaction over there. Is that what you're saying?
During the construction,
During
which
the
needs to be
construction.
remediated no
Right.
matter what. So it's an opportunity, I don't want to say it's a no cost, but it's a reduced cost because the contractors are already going to have to be remediating those grounds that they're utilizing for laydown.
Okay, so I guess that my one comment at this point would be that it would be great to see some investigation for the change in that stormwater infrastructure to see if we could make that into a meadow no-mow site. So if you look at Haymarket Park, right now there is a very large stormwater basin over there that has signage on it. It's a really excellent, kind of informal environmental education place that serves multiple functions. There are others in the area, and I think it would just be great to be able to combine a little bit of beautification with a little bit of, habitat.
Mike, are you aware, isn't that area where those blue markers are, isn't that still used for some athletic activities as well, even though there's drainage there?
I believe, but it's not all the time, only when it's really dry.
Okay.
We'll make note of that.
But
and
we'll
Yeah.
look, we'll
Great.
look into it.
provide that to the team.
Thank you.
And I would note, I touched on this a little bit earlier. We're really getting to the point now of we're going to be bringing food service. The civil engineer is fully going to engage now that they have a survey in the computer. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, acoustician, sustainability consultant. The entire team is going to fully engage at this point. So it's going to be a much larger team moving forward.
Now we're on.
Okay, next step, and I think we've touched on some of this, so this is more of just a summary related to Mount Nittany. So again, we've completed the confirmation of the schematic floor plan. So really, we're moving on to the next stage of the project. Detailed survey is complete. What you haven't seen yet, and will start to become in development, is now that we've flushed out the full project, we'll start talking about cost and discussing that with the administration and all of you in the coming months. Okay, I already spoke about we're evaluating the vehicle loop, which was really sort of a new thing that we're looking at. I've spoken about the teams expanding on here, sustainability moving forward. 12 years later, the building was certified under version 2 in roughly 2012 time period. So what is integrating version 4 and 4.1 now mean to the overall building, both with an addition and the existing building? So we'll be having that analysis moving forward now that we have a floor plan complete. And then again, hearing all of your input as well as all your stakeholders of your administration, your faculty, your staff, community, but then also all of your feedback as we bring this back to you periodically. Okay. Okay. So that was.
Oops, sorry, that's the next one.
No.
Yeah. So let's just, again, just as a reminder, and sharing possibly with our new board members for the first time, Again, we're doing an addition, but we also, as we talked about the site work, that could contextually be considered district-wide facility master planning work. There's also deferred maintenance work that we're looking at, whether it's time for electrical upgrades, whether it's time for heating, ventilation, air conditioning. No, we don't believe there are, but we'll continue to, at least I'm hoping they're not. But in addition, we're looking at some of the brick repair and ceiling and envelope work. Mike is looking at his list of things that would be upcoming for that building, and then asking the architect to do some assessment, have the engineers and whatnot look at that. So again, once we get to this whole total cost, it will be more than just a six classroom addition. So I just wanted to make you aware of the work that we're doing. We're trying to be proactive in this project so that this building then is in good shape for quite a number of years to come. It will be, I don't know if by square footage or student enrollment, it will be our largest building when it's completed, but it will definitely be in the top tier. And so that's why so many things are, just bigger and more expansive. Does that make sense, Danielle?
It does. I just want to, so the other buildings were built in MDS. Easterly loves MDS. I know we have many board members that know that it's a very inclusive, and they are going to have a hard time seeing those students go. But the upgrades needed for those students to truly have equitable resources is needed. And for whatever reason, when we built the other schools, because that school was still able to house them, but the way that school has grown, this is going to be a real benefit for those students. And I just think can make great gains for them if they have the room and just the whole logistics of that building and the handicap resources that it will have. I'm excited, so thank you for, I guess, adding that to part of the plan.
When you present us the budget, would you be able to separate what's part of the district-wide planning that needed to be done anyway, instead of just us getting the whole big amount?
That makes sense?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay.
On that.
Thank you.
I think that's a good idea, yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
So we're going to move on to then an update on our district-wide facility master planning. And Jeff, you want to start with the schedule?
Okay. District-wide study, we're about a month or two behind where the elementary school was. Very similar almost where we were back in October for the for Mount Nittany. So right now we're laying a lot of the groundwork in place. So whether it's just general demographic information, educational program for the school district, what we're spending a lot of time working on right now is preliminary surveys of the buildings, both architecturally. The mechanical, electrical, plumbing teams have been out in the building in the last month. Now that they have those surveys complete, we'll then be transferring that information into templates that can be utilized both in the final study, also by the district. There's been discussions about just working through what that template is specifically so it meets the expectations of the district and can be utilized in the future. So that's sort of where now we're moving into the next steps. So that now that we have those surveys complete, now we can start working a little bit more in depth from that groundwork of where we start to move forward, both building off of existing floor plans, the survey components, and then starting to have discussions, for instance, whether it be, energy modeling, which has been, a lot of that's been completed by the district in the past. The greenhouse gas evaluation, which is a new component that the district has added to this process that we're incorporating at this time. I would note it's been discussed about also communicating with Center Region COG as well as the borough on initiatives that they're working for. We have made some preliminary contacts for that, more than open for input from the board, really so that holistically we're hearing from your direction. But we're going to, I don't know that we have any set decisions on that yet, but we're going to be making the contacts to should we build upon so that there's sort of a coordination with them, or should we be using a different method? And we'll be evaluating that moving forward for you. Okay. Something else so that's sort of part one of the study. The other is really focusing more on Park Forest Middle School. And we're not going to be presenting anything specifically to you this evening. However, we have started working on test fits, looking at district-owned property in the Park Forest area right now. And we're specifically looking both at new construction as well as additions and renovations for a project. We're focusing obviously on land that you already own, the ability that can be more efficient time-wise for the district and potentially cost. If that would be then, down the line, not a building would not be able to accommodate on that site, then we might, grow or reach out further looking at other potential sites, but that adds time and potential cost. Again, I don't want to say we won't be going there, but we're going to start from this first step first, okay? And again, we've had some very preliminary reviews with the administration. It's really not ready to bring forward to everybody because we're still vetting a lot of that out. But anticipate, just like I mentioned, we'll be starting to talk about budget for Mount Nittany. You'll start seeing test fits of how we could potentially utilize the site at Park Forest for a new middle school, as well as while we're also developing the full program with your administration. So there's sort of two pieces. We're not going to spend we will be spending a series of months developing the specific program of exactly, classrooms or performing arts or each of those needs. But at the same time, we're taking generally 800 student middle schools and test fitting them how we could locate them on the site. We don't want to spend all this time developing a building and then 4 months from now find out it doesn't fit on the site. So generally we know how large an 800 student middle school should be. We can lay that out and solve that problem now versus being 4 months from now and saying the site doesn't work after we spent all this time also working on the educational program. So there's going to be a lot of pieces moving at the same time. Okay. Keep moving forward to current steps. Okay. Site surveys for the district-wide study, specifically towards, we have surveyed the existing sites. I'm going to jump around here a little bit. I mentioned that we completed the site survey, and it's in the computer for Mount Nittany Elementary School. We have not done that. That has not been completed for the Park Forest site, frankly, because of the amount of vegetation out on that site. I'm going to say the pin oaks and pine trees, or more of the pin oaks, I'm sorry, out that location. We're just waiting for, frankly, a lot of the leaves to fall, so that for the software and I believe it's actually drones that are flying, that are mapping out that site. So that will be completed in the near future. We are also beginning the process with CAC. In fact, Facilities has met with the CAC. We were not part of that initial meeting, but some of that feedback is being provided to us. We will start integrating more moving forward into January with the CAC for Facilities. And then the goal is that we'll be bringing to the full board some initial findings and discussions with the CAC on February 5th. Okay? Then the goal is not that the board would make any decisions that evening. We would present that information to you. You would have a month to digest it and come up with any potential questions, and then we would be coming back to the board on roughly March 11th, March 25th, for input and responses to the information that was provided in February to all of you. So this is sort of laying out just for some planning purposes that you as a board of school directors can plan on some back and forth and input for everybody involved. Okay. Again, we're also evaluating the educational program, and this was actually a comment that Mr. Brown said we're not quite where we initially thought we would be. Schedules adjust. We've spent so much time doing surveys and just other components of both Mount Nittany and the study that we haven't fully vetted out the educational program, and that's also going to be moving in forward substantially in the next month as we develop the program. And then also the last one is more separate from us. The district's in process right now of developing a steering committee in addition to the CAC for facilities. And then those groups we will also be engaging in early 2024. Okay. And that is an overview for this evening. Any questions that anybody would have?
Go ahead, Dr. Buck.
Thank
Yes, Dr.
you. Thank you guys so much for doing this. I have three comments here. So one is I emailed you and thank you very much for raising discussions with the Center Region Planning Agency. The Center Region Planning Agency through Pam Adams does the regional greenhouse gas inventory. They have a methodology that uses the ICLEI community protocol, and there's a local government operations protocol. So whether you use that actual protocol or not, I just want to make sure that whatever we do, the apple can be the apple, so that they're comparable, so that that agency can include whatever we do into whatever they do next. Because us doing it, then they can repeat it, right? If it's included in the scope of work, or can just reach out and say, hey, what data do you have? And there can just be some replicability. So I just hope that we'd be able to do that. And there are lots of reasons that I don't need to go into about why that's a good idea. The second has to do with a request. Well, actually, there are three things. One is a request to look at bird-friendly glass across our facilities. And I know that Monica said that she's on our CAC for facilities, had raised this issue, and so I think it volunteered to show Mr. Fisher some bird-friendly glass. Number two is to look at solar on our parking lots across the district. I'm under no illusion that that might be more expensive, but with incentives that are available through the Inflation Reduction Act, et cetera, it seems like it might just be that we could look at it. And then the third, and this had been raised in a meeting several months ago, about the forested property across from Park Forest Middle, and should that end up becoming a school instead of a lot of trees that people like. I would like us to consider a plan for however we replace those trees. Whether those would be on our property in a cooperative agreement with the Center Region Park and Rec Authority, with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Clearwater Conservancy. I mean, there are a number of organizations across the region that we might be able to work with on something like that. It's a lot of trees, and I would hate to lose them. We clearly need a new building. If we start planning now and cooperating now, we're likely to get farther. So, yep, greenhouse gas inventory, bird-friendly glass, solar, trees.
Okay, we took all comments on all
Thank you.
those. We'll look into those.
I always give the plug for native trees, but you already know that, Jeff.
Also that.
I think that an excellent job was done at the high school. Trees are harder for me than plants. I'm much better with flowers, but I do recognize a lot of our vegetation and things at the high school have really been in the native realm. I really appreciate that.
I just have a couple other.
Oh, more things to add?
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
Just obviously Dr. Buck has very good rationale for bringing up the connection with Center Region COG. I just want to make sure that that is a board-supported action that we take. So we'll assume that unless someone speaks out now. But just wanted to make sure that made sense to everybody. He obviously explained it better than I could have because I didn't know all that information anyway, so thank you.
Yeah, and just really quick, I serve on the technical advisory group for the Regional Climate Action Adaptation Plan, which is where that comes from. I could have said that at the beginning. I don't know if it's necessary.
That's fine. So that makes sense to everyone. I mean, I don't see that there's any cost in any way, shape, or form. We just want to make sure that that's a directive. So, okay, we'll take that. In closing, I just want to remind everyone that there will be a board coffee, as Dr. Bucher mentioned earlier, next time you meet on the 18th at 5 o'clock. We will be advertising that as an opportunity not only to come talk to you as board members for the community, but also to talk about this Mount Nittany addition. We look to have that proposed design presented on January 22nd for approval, and we'll be continue to provide the feedback that we receive so that you understand the rationale for certain pieces that we've added to the project or certain modifications from what you've seen previously. Steering committee is being created for the district-wide facility master plan to begin engaging in the project in early January of 2024. Representatives of the steering committee representation was included in the memo for this evening. Examples of that, if there are other direct individuals that you'd like us to consider, please feel free to contact me. A website has been created for the district-wide facility master plan, and underneath that is the steering committee, and we have information about that there, and later this week, an application for those that are interested can use that to apply. It will be added. And again, I've talked about this, but this is just, I see that this project, from my standpoint, can become, that we're engaging in as far as this master planning, very much more than a school. It's obviously, it is much more pronged than even Park Forest Elementary School. It's not going to come close to the high school project, don't get me wrong, but it is going to be very, it has many focuses. Our primary focus is updating the Park Forest Middle School, but we've also begun looking at financing for this project. So we're looking and beyond, and so our financial advisor will be meeting with your finance team later in December, and then we'll have information for you in January. We're also working with our bond counsel so that we can understand the ramifications of spending money now, even though the projects aren't going on until later. And so we will be probably bringing forth a reimbursement resolution. I'll talk about that further, but basically that means that if we use our resources to pay for certain expenses, but then we borrow money that are for the project, we can technically we would then be allowed under this reimbursement resolution to reimburse our funds or the district funds to pay for those expenses. So we're working on that as well. In addition to how much of the capital reserves we use for these projects and when. That takes care of that. In addition, we're continuing to work with CRA to ensure that we explore available PlanCon funding opportunities. Mr. Straub mentioned that. So basically, because the state government has not done their job, the PlanCon window technically is open, or it's not closed. Let's put it that way. It may not be open, but it's not technically closed. And so kind of what we did for the last 3 elementary projects is that we jumped. We're exploring the possibility of jumping again. What does that jump mean? It means potentially state funding. And so we have the vast majority, if not all of the information necessary to submit PlanCon A and B for Mount Nittany Elementary School project. So we're going to be preparing those, having that further discussion on the 18th of December, and then hopefully on January 8th, asking you to approve us taking that action, assuming that we don't have a state budget by then. If what I remember reading is correct, there is only 3 or 4 days that the state Government is going to be in session this month, and so my guess is that by January 8th, we still will have a opportunity to make those submissions. Related to the district-wide facility master plan, specifically Park Forest Middle School project, we're not as far as what we are as with the Mount Nittany project. However, if we do a basic description of the project, basic description of where the project will be located and what it would include, we believe that it's Mr. Straub and his team's understanding that the project can be described one way in Plan Con A and B for the submission, but it can be modified later on. And so we're going to continue to further research, and if this is definitely a possibility, you'll see this as an agenda item in December, on December 18th, and then further action in January.
So Randy, this is basically, I mean, PlanCon's a two-step process. So if we can get through this window and be on a list, it means we've gotten on the list. It doesn't necessarily mean we will receive funding, just so it's clear for the community. So
That is correct.
it's the
But
first
if you
step
don't
of
get
having
on
an
the-
opportunity, right?
But if you don't,
get on the list.
conversely, if you don't get on the list, you definitely can't get any funding.
Absolutely. So yeah, I just wanted, it's a two-tier approach to get in. Yeah, thanks.
And I apologize that we're talking about this, some board members' first meeting, because there's a lot to be caught up on, I'm sure. But you have lots of seasoned board members here, and obviously you can rely on your team here as well, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. So thanks for your patience. That's all I have. If there are any other questions for tonight.
I think that's it. Thanks very much to
Thank
Crabtree
you.
for joining us from a distance.
Thanks.
I know you have a long travel,
Thank you.
so.
Have a good evening.
You have a good evening.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Want to move on to the next item?
Yeah, so we'll move on to the last item on facilities and grounds. Mr. Buck will continue with an update on the power purchase agreement with help from Dr. Buck and Ms. Brandt.
I will actually kick it over to Randy.
Sure. So we continue to pressure to ask questions, but we believe that we are moving in a good direction. And we are very hopeful that for December 6th, when we have December 13th, when we have a working group meeting, that we should be receiving documents that we can then begin reviewing as individual organizations. I did receive an update today that there are still some steps yet to be completed, but our consultant continues to do so on our behalf. Let's just put it, there are fewer I's to dot and T's to cross than there were even a month ago. This is a big project, and so we need to continue to work through it, and we're just hopeful that we can get those documents in hand in December so that we can have January, February, and as much of March as is necessary so that we can get these approved. And our goal is to have them completed and approved by sometime in March. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think I guess the one small thing that I would add is that it is Mr. Shively did receive a copy back of the PPA from Prospect that had very, very small, very small items. So I always want to believe that, no, really, it's the last thing, but I've heard that too much to say that. But I know that it is possible that it could be the end.
Okay. So we'll continue to report back and provide additional information.
Ready to go? Okay. Thanks very much. So last item of committee work is culture, climate, and learning. Well, I was wondering, before you guys come up, I know we have a lot of people in the public here that I think are here for the second portion of that agenda. Would you mind terribly if we flip-flop the order so that maybe perhaps they've waited so patiently, and I thought it might just be nice to cover that. Oh, I'm sorry, Randy. I know it's a long meeting tonight, and people have been really patient to wait. So we're going to jump ahead to the community education extended learning update. with Ms. Yoder and Mr. Brown. Oh, I'm sorry, Randy, did I throw you off?
I'll just go ahead and get things kicked off. For many years, unfortunately, we have been working with, or maybe you can say working against the Department of Education and Department of Human Services, who has, I'm on a roll tonight, aren't I? with our SEAL program and maintaining its our ability to, as we believe, we should be able to run that program as part of an extension of our school day. The DHS has wanted us to become licensed under OCDEL and be basically run as a daycare. And what that means is then that there are different staffing requirements and other requirements in the operations of that program that would be necessary. We've lost what may be the last appeal level before we go to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. We are still working to be heard by that court, but to that end, in order to keep the program running, we've had to begin the licensure process. Ms. Messick here is working on that, and we're communicating and getting guidance when she needs it. But she's also become very, very well versed in a lot of the changes that we would need to be made. We believe that the changes are not going to result in major differences for our students and families. It's more of some internal structure, because I don't want to cause angst for our families. And so that they understand that we are trying very desperately to maintain this service for them and on their behalf. So that's where we are, but also as we are at this crossroads, we believe that it's also our due diligence to understand what other opportunities there may be. And so just last week, we released an RFP for services from third-party providers to provide this service. We would contract with them, but they would be not being paid by the district, but they would be paid by the individual families as a third party that is solely has a contract with the exclusive rights to work in the school district. So we're working through all of this. Wanted to provide a public report to the board, understanding that while it was legal litigation, we did not feel that it was appropriate to share a lot of this as we do with our legal cases. So we don't want anyone to feel that we've been hiding anything, but we have been working very diligent. And although it may seem like, how can you be working diligently for over 8 years, we really were. There was many different appeals and filings back and forth, meetings, phone calls, and visits to Harrisburg throughout that time. Did I miss anything or anything that you'd like to add?
Regarding the licensing, our goal is just to make it as minimally impactful on our students and families. It's a lot of hoops to jump through from our side of things, but our hope is that for the remainder of the school year being licensed, that our families and students won't see significant change at the ground level.
We, as the memo shared, we have started the process with the certification. We have also started, Mr. Etter has started the appeal process and taking those steps and just trying to work through all of that, but also accepting the bids that we will then begin to review. Do you want to share anything with the combination of the one or not, with Coral Street? Combining with Mr. Etter?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
It was only 6 schools, and then we combined Coral.
In
You
the
have
meantime,
background
could I
on
ask a
that.
question?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Rose. I know hindsight is 20/20, but since it's been going on for like 8 years, do you think it could have been possible to kind of start the licensure a little earlier, just in case we end up in the position that we're in now?
It obviously we could have, but Dr. Etter really, and we as an administration, understanding what school code says, And looking at the Octal and DHS documentation, we did not feel that we needed to do that licensure situation, that we had every right to run this program. And there is, I will not name, but there is a charter school in our community that has been given permission to run their own after-school program, and we have not. And you, as a school board, approved their charter.
A very similar, I do feel like it's necessary to say that it is a very similarly run after-school program to SEAL as well.
Right, they're not meeting these
They are
these
not
certifications or ratios either.
Mhm.
Okay,
So
thank you.
it's a very fair question, but we were just very confident that that we would win. And actually, I think it was the very first opinion, we felt that we had received, had been in our favor, and then it had been rescinded.
Okay, thank you.
So the first filing that came out was against 6 of our sites, and then they realized that we had a 7th one at Coral Street, which still is not in existence, but it is, the filing is still there. And so that site is still being in the courts as well. And so there is a chance that, again, as he's filing, working through that, in addition, as we, if we're able to win that case, then that could be extrapolated to all of our other sites.
I think Mr. Eder was online and wanted to add some
Oh,
additional
sorry.
information. Yeah. Go ahead, Scott. You need to unmute yourself if you could, please. And then you should be able to speak.
What Randy said was accurate, but I wanted to say as well, Shannon had started the certification process early on during the 7.5-year period, and then we prevailed at the first stage. And I think as part of that, Shannon can certainly speak for herself, but I think she backed off at that point. And then there were literally multi-year delays, not because of anything we were doing or not doing, but multi-year delays in the court process where literally nothing was happening. So it was a very odd process to get to where we are right now.
Thank you.
I also think it's fair to point out too that Spring Creek has never been a part of, so Hauserville, Lamont, when SEAL first started and we expanded, we had Hauserville Lamont School combined at Mount Nittany Elementary. And so Mount Nittany was part of these initial suits. However, when the program switched over to Hauserville, or it switched to Lamont and then eventually to Spring Creek, those schools were never involved. And we had a visit the week before Thanksgiving, I believe, by the state representative that would come around now and again. And he did go to Spring Creek, and I think we're still expecting cease and desist orders for that location. And that's the beginning of that process for Spring Creek. So it's fair to say it's bizarre.
It's been, good description.
Gretchen, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a question. So you said that families probably, during this licensure process, families probably won't notice any differences, because I'm sure that that's what those families are wondering. So are there going to be any differences for them at all during that? Because that would be like from basically now to the end of the school year, right?
So we work together to review a couple of different things, the certification, but also a program modification that could qualify us for an extended program. And really, when we look at STEAM or STEM, so science, technology, engineering, art, music, almost everything that SEAL is doing can fit under that. We've got to explore how to tie in math if we're playing basketball. So there might be differences there. Looking at how much time is allotted for outside recess and the structure of that. So really within a schedule, but we do not believe that they will notice any large impacts. And our SEAL supervisors have done a really nice job thinking of outside the box activities that might be new and more engaging than what they've had with regard to fitting into that STEAM framework that is the one source academic component.
Okay, so if families ask us, then that's pretty much the answer. Like, there might be some minor
Slight
changes, but the kids are probably not even gonna really notice. Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Miller, Dr. Miller.
It's fine. Either one is fine. So I don't know if my question kind of rises to the level of talking about litigation or anything, but I guess I'm curious if there is any sort of explanation or justification, or if there is another remedy that maybe they have offered that, like, what changes would they expect to see for us to meet the same standards that this other charter program are. And I don't know if that's been an argument that's made as part of the litigation or a part of that decision, or if that's something that we don't know.
If Dr. Etter's still on the call, he may recall more than I, but we received a letter, and it's been years. This was very early in the process that we received the letter from the state indicating that this charter school did not meet the licensing guidelines, so they were not required to be licensed. And if I recall correctly, it said that the program is within their charter. That was it. That summarizes the explanation that we received, which.
And I think Dr. Etter was going to add something if we give him a second. Go ahead. And make sure you unmute yourself.
I'm getting an appreciation for people who participate remotely and hit the unmute 6 times before they get through. That's one of the mysteries that we have experienced in this case, that a charter school that we granted the charter to is able to run a program, and yet we can't grant ourselves that same authority to do it. I have theories about how or why that may have occurred, and I'd be happy to discuss those with you offline. But yes, that there have been several things in this process that are perplexing to us, to say the least.
Thanks. Okay. Any other questions from board members? Well, I really appreciate the update, and I know this has been a complicated process. Thanks. So we'll have a final update from Culture, Climate, and Learning, which will be from Dr. Bucher, Ms. Merritt, and Ms. Yoder for an update on the PSSA Keystone and Future Ready Index. And thanks for kindly flip-flopping. I think some community members appreciated that.
Good evening. Sorry about that. Good evening. So we would like to.
My computer never likes the HDMI, so give me just a second. I have no idea why.
Well, she gets
I
that
will
hooked
try
up.
it.
We're excited to share the PA Future Ready Index tool with you tonight, and some look at some of the data that you can mine from this site. So, is it up?
I'm ready.
All right. Okay, great. So the first overview is just the topics we'll be covering tonight. You take a look at those. We'd like to talk a little bit about the purpose of PA Future Ready, as well as some of our changing demographics, as well as our achievement in PSSA Keystone and Future Ready Index for grades K to 12, and then next steps for our comp plan. So the purpose of tonight's overview is to provide the board with an overview of our performance overall during the 22-23 school year as measured by the indicators in PA Future Ready. Certainly there are lots of indicators we can look at, but these are the ones the state gives us. And so this tool moves beyond a single summative kind of score and gives us a more comprehensive look for transparency around school performance and student group performance by school. So it's really an interactive tool, depending on what you click on and how far you want to go into each piece. So I think it's really important to understand what the kind of things are you can see. What is it measuring for us? It's measuring our achievement, which is how many students are proficient or advanced on state tests. It's also looking at whether we're meeting our annual growth expectations for students through PVAS and our English language proficiency access test, as well as regular attendance, graduation rate, and career standards benchmark. And it uses a dashboard approach to sort of looking at all of this data in lots of different ways. So what does it measure? As I said, it's a holistic kind of tool to look at the district in lots of different ways. It provides a comparison to statewide averages, which is really nice to look at, by displaying school performance, statewide average, and statewide goal. It also helps us look at student group performance when we have a group large enough to have that data. So you have to have at least 20 students in a school in order to receive a student group data score. But this tool meets the ESSA federal accountability.
So we thought it was important this year just to provide an explanation of the different areas of what they're exactly looking for. So when Chris talked about them, the next few slides really discuss what is considered in achievement. And again, we did share proficiency dates, proficiency projections in August with you. Today we'll go into the state comparison. So we will give you overall proficiency by grade level and then where it fell within the state. The same with the Keystone. PASA is included. It is hard to disaggregate PASA out. I've not been able to find it when I'm looking. I'm not saying it's not there, but that is included in our overall future ready and building scores that we receive. Growth expectations is one of the biggest factors for overall school scores, performance scores within the growth score that we look. So when we show you Future Ready tonight, we will show you, we really look at, did they exceed the growth? And you'll see blue. Did they meet the growth? Green. And then red is really, we did not make adequate growth. And really Future Ready puts a lot of the focus on overall growth because we want every student to grow. We also want to maintain the proficiency. Notice again, you can only track students who were at the same school that took the test in one grade and took it again in the next. So any of our new students in State College would not be judged on the growth. They would be judged on the achievement, if that makes sense. So we look at everybody in achievement, growth, they have to have been here for 2 years to take that. Those two both are from last year's data, 2023, when the students tested in the spring. Attendance is a lagging indicator. And so when Jonathan presents tonight about the high school, you're going to see that the high school did not meet the attendance goal, but it's actually from the year that we just had students back from COVID. But it is really looking at the number of students enrolled in a district for 90 or more days, but have missed more than 10% of the school days. But again, that data is actually from the 2020, 2021. And we'll show you tonight on Future Ready where to look for that so that you see that. It is the same with high school graduation. Until all of those uploads are made at the end of the year in June when students graduate, they pull that data from the year prior, but it is added to this year's Future Ready. The career benchmark standards directly aligned, of course, to our strategic plan. That is really that they have to have so many career artifacts by certain grade levels, and they have to be submitted to the state, but that is considered one of the indicators. And then again, as Chris shared, the English language proficiency, you're going to see we have 4 hubs in our schools, 4 elementary schools that have ESL students. Only one of them has enough students to look at whether or not we meet that. So even though we have students, in most cases we're below the 20 in the elementary schools.
All right, so I'll be talking about the percent enrollment of students by group. So if you look at the comparison left to right, on the left 22, 23 school year, most recent 21, 22 to the right. Looking at different groups, it reports out on economically disadvantaged, English language learners, special education, foster care, homeless, and military connected, and gives a comparison of those two year over year in the last 2 years. Really just want to note the economically disadvantaged change, the nearly 3.5% increase in our economically disadvantaged recently, as well as our homeless population has more than doubled from 0.6 to 1.5. Moving on. Demographics, so there's a pie chart representing our demographic groups within the district listed there. The largest movement within the last 2 years would be the Hispanic group. So a small portion, but if you move to the next slide, it gives a more historic view of the changes. So over the last 5 years, there's a span that shows the district's demographics are changing. It was a student population of 6,800 students. The percentages don't look like there's a lot of change there, but when there's that many students into the student groups, it is showing some definite change. The largest change is 2 or more races of a 0.9 increase in the last 5-year span, Hispanic 0.6 increase, and Asian 0.5. So overall, that really shows our district is changing. Another area in the district fast facts that compares our last 2 years there as well. The one thing I'd like to point out there is beyond the basic information that we pretty much know about our school district, the universal screener for our gifted, we have implemented that in the last year. That's a doubling there from 0.37 to 7%. And that has a lot to do with in 3rd grade, we're giving a universal screener to identify gifted students, and that's something we were doing prior. So that's showing a doubling of our gifted population.
So again, we did share PSSA data in August, so some of these numbers, they might have been tweaked a little bit because final calculations, we have a chance to resubmit and look at the data and make sure that if a student wasn't here for the duration, but they're pretty close to what we shared. When you look at this, when you take the time to look at it, so in math, across the board, if you look at some of the gains that we made, really in math, we made gains. I want you to look at the cohort, however. So if they were in 3rd grade in 21-22, they would have been 4th graders in 22-23. So we saw some dips. We also saw some gains pending the grade. We would have to drill down to look at that. But really in comparison to Pennsylvania, so Pennsylvania, this is public knowledge. If you go to Pennsylvania Department of Education's website, we are still significantly above the overall proficiency rates in math in comparison to all students within the state and then their overall proficiency averages. And again, these are the students combined scoring at the benchmark or above, so they would have either have received a proficiency or advanced on their grade level assessment. And then again with reading, we did drop in 3rd grade reading, and really we've looked at some of the schools, and as you know, we have put a new main primary resource in place with the HMH and making sure we're moving towards some structured literacy and explicit practices. But again, when you look at this, you can see that we've made some gains, we've dipped some, but it's also important to look at that cohort to make sure that we should be the same from year to year, if not higher, is our overall goal. Although not all students compared, it's not necessarily all, we would take all move-ins and look at that. So we could have some differences in the students that took the test to determine the proficiency. Overall in the reading though, we're looking at about 20%, anywhere from 15 to 20% higher than the state average within our scores for reading in grades 3 through 8. Our science did come up this year, so still pretty consistent. Keep in mind the science assessment beginning next year is going to the new Steele standards, and it is going to be assessed in 5th grade next year. So this year will be the last year. I could be wrong. This year we'll take fourth grade. Next year it will be given, I believe, just in fifth grade. I want to look at that, but it's definitely changing. It will be an entirely new assessment. And that fourth grade assessment has not been changed. When all of the other ones went and changed in, I think, 2015, 16, science did not. So that is still the same assessment that has been around for probably 10 to 15 years that we have done well on. Again, about 15% higher normally than the state average in both fourth and eighth grade.
So the Keystone exams at the secondary level. So the Keystone exams, we'll go through the three that are taken: algebra, ELA, literature, and biology. So first we'll talk about Algebra 1, which is taken at four of our buildings, which are state high, possibly in ninth grade or 10th, eighth grade at our two middle schools, and Delta Middle or high school. So Algebra 1, so you're looking there, the year over comparison the last 2 years, we're about 8 points higher in achievement, and comparing the fairly low number there for the state average. Obviously, we're shooting for great and excellence, so that's good to see some upward movement. I will say at this slide, we will come back to later in the presentation, so just as a framework, we'll come back to the slide later on, slide 22. As far as Keystone Biology, also taken at two buildings, that would be State High and Delta. There's a 5.6% increase. This is typically taken in pretty much everywhere in the state in 10th grade. So that's our movement there, fairly low number for the state average. And Keystone Literature, here at SCASD, it's taken in 10th grade. It's common throughout the state to be taken in 11th. But there's a 2.3% increase this last testing session comparative to the state average for literature, given in 10th grade.
We went ahead and put, when we show you Future Ready tonight, like I said, it is public access. You can get in and look at all of this. Found this under, it's called the Special Education Report, and you can drill down to State College. So this is the 2022-23 State College Report. And it is important to look at relatively our percent of special education students. So we are, of course, the LEA on the large one. We are lower overall percent of special education than the state. That's something to kind of determine, should we be kind of where the state is, or with our demographics, is that where we want to be? And it really breaks down and then just gives an overall comparison. What we are focusing on, we've already begun to work with the special education department to pull some things, is we are seeing, if you look at the race and ethnicity one, you can see that our white population, LEA, is pretty comparable with the state, or where we are, it's where we should be, but we are still comparing, our special ed numbers for some of our minority races. With our Asian count is 4.1% qualify for special ed. 8.6%, and only 4% of our population qualifies. But as you know, we have about a 2.7% of population of Black or African American students, yet our special ed numbers show almost double that. So why almost that disproportionality? What that should show is about 2.7. It should notice that our white race is pretty much aligned. It is really the same with a Hispanic. So we are trying to determine, why are we, where did those numbers come from? Like, where are these students being identified? Is it an over identification? What is, so we've got to drill that down. We have already pulled spreadsheets, because what we have to determine is, when we go to look at this school by school, 8 elementary schools, a lot of times the N does not equal 20. And we're going to continue to talk about, if there's not a subset of 20, we can't get that. So we're going in now, we've pulled data from Synergy. We're going to find out what year they were identified, what grade they were in, what school, just to see if we can see trends of where this, if there is true over-identification, what it is. We're looking at all of the disability categories to determine that, and special ed, and actually we will, all of us will be working to try to determine that throughout this year to get more answers to that, because we haven't been flagged for disproportionality, but as you know, if you've been with us long enough, in 2018-19, we were flagged for some things dealing with our special education students and with suspensions. So that is something that we wanted to be transparent about, and we are looking into.
The next slide talks about just overall, what's the landscape look like in Pennsylvania? How are students in Pennsylvania doing? And you can see there are modest gains in state assessments for ELA, math, and science between 21-22 and 22-23. We watch that carefully as we continue to be concerned about pandemic effects on learning. So we're trending in a good direction. It's never quite as fast as we all want to see it, but statewide, I'm talking about. Our district is a little better landscape than the state. Our English learner growth and attainment increased in the state from 22.2 to 29%. Four-year cohort graduation increased slightly in the state, and regular attendance decreased nationally. Again, that's a lagging indicator, so that's actually 2 years ago. And that's still when many districts were quarantining students or asking them to stay out if they contracted COVID, things like that. And then career standards benchmark increased moderately as well from 22 to 23.
So within your presentation, or if you just search Future Ready PA Index, you will find the link. When you click on that link, this is what will, actually this is because I've been in it. Normally it says, are you a parent? I mean, it'll come up that this is a public document and you have to choose who you are. Really, all of the information is the same. It's just collecting the data of who's looking at it. You simply search. I usually go, State College High School has come up, but if you go to the district, you will see that what we shared tonight, right there are some of the screenshots. So we took screenshots to show the demographic. What Future Ready doesn't do, though, is compile all of our schools to give us overall percentages. We have to do that. But each school is listed in here, and I will just open to Coral Street, and you can click whatever school you want. If you go to the district, I'm going to go back here just to show you what I think is the easiest, because sometimes if you do one space or something differently, if you go to the district fast facts, this was the high school that we looked at, but there's a tab right here, district fast facts, and then go down. All of State College's schools are right here where it says. You can do comparisons if you'd like to look. You can even compare different districts. But again, all of these are drill down. So you really have to, it takes a lot of time. A quick glance, you're looking for blue and green. Blue is like great, they have exceeded. Green is what we call good. But you can drill down even further. So your state assessment measures are your achievement. Remember, go back to what Chris talked about, their achievement and growth. But if I click on view all state assessment measures, then you see even more that goes into more as far as what was their proficiency, what was the statewide, just for that school. Then you can even drill down, and you will see in many of our cases, we just can't disaggregate the data in the elementary schools, so we'll be showing you that. But you can just keep going back and down. There is a lot of information on this website that anybody can go into to learn more about individual schools, but also regarding the district, or if they wanted to do a comparison and look up other school districts that they maybe are interested in. All of that is within there, and tells you. I talked to you about that special education report. It is right here, and it is a one-page report. And you can see the other audits and stuff. I was not able to figure out how to drill down. That is just information about all districts. So it's a lot of information that the state is giving for public release. that is found right on this website. So what we did for you, this is not a ton of disaggregated data, but hopefully you can see we felt that we had some real promising data and, of course, still areas to work on. So we looked at, remember that green and blue, if any area ended up in the red in an individual school, we would not have counted that. So in our elementary schools, out of 8 schools, 6 of the 8 met or exceeded the achievement. 8 of the 8 last year compared to 6 of the 8 in 21-22. All elementary schools met the growth goal for ELA. That was, I want to credit a lot of that to the school comp plans that Mr. Johnson had us focus on and look at those school comprehensive goals and set goals. A lot of these are based on that. Math achievement, 8 out of 8. This past year, 6 of the 8 schools met the math growth. Last year, if you remember, no schools met it, so 6 did. Our science achievement, historically, we meet, all 8 schools met. Our science growth this year, all elementary schools met. There is only one school, as I said, regarding the ELL. That school did meet it. All elementary schools made attendance, and all 8 elementary schools, actually every school in the district this year exceeded the college and career benchmark, and that was another SCASD priority that was in a lot of those school comprehensive plans. And if you go over to the middle and high schools, Jonathan will talk a little bit about those.
Thank you, Danielle. So looking at the areas for growth, just looking at the middle level, so this would be Park Forest, Mount Nittany, and Delta Middle. We need some movement on the math achievement. You see 0 and 0 in the middle from the 2 different year comparison. An area of some promise, in ELA growth, we went from 0 buildings, 2 middle schools to 2, both buildings hitting that target. And also some nice movement in science achievement, math growth, there's others there. Looking at State High and Delta High, there's a lot of yeses there, which is great to see. So just a year-over-year comparison, the ELL was somewhere we need to put some more focus in the 2 years. But we did have 21. We had a yes in the 21 column, 22 column, and a no. And Danielle and Chris had talked about that earlier, about that lagging data. The good news is the preliminary data that was finalized as of September 30th for this next round looks very promising. We do have that data. It just takes a while for the state to get it. Like I said, it's a lagging indicator. Just one of the whys behind the lagging indicator is the state gives all students in schools to get all kids across the finish line till September 30th. So any kid that's completing summer school, an opportunity to be counted in their graduation cohort, and that's part of that delay. So they give students that amount of time to get with their cohort, and then we're already into the next school year, so that's part of that delay. But like I said, the preliminary data that we're looking at for the next round is very promising. And I know the high school's diligently working on even more, making sure we're accurately recording attendance to reflect what is happening there.
Question? Initially, when you talked about growth, you had said that if a student is not there for 2 years, you couldn't assess their growth. Would that affect some of the things that we're seeing, or we don't have enough students to really make an impact on that?
I don't think most of our schools have pretty much the same clientele every year. We do have some transient. Easterly has a lot due to the international families coming in, a little bit more of what we would consider a transient population. But because the growth is just looking at the students who have been here, I don't think it like our new students can't hurt. Any new student can't hurt us because they're not part of it. It's not like they're put in and added as a negative. They just won't be calculated until, like, if they moved here last year, they wouldn't be part of that growth measure. They would have been pulled, but they will be this year.
Okay, thank you.
So this slide is really complicated, and it gave us pause when we were looking at the building score for the high school. We kept saying, why is the math achievement in Algebra 1 so different than what we reported in the fall, which is 77% proficient or advanced, yet if you look at Future Ready, it's much lower, that's in the 50s. And we were going back and forth, and then did a little research and had to remind ourselves about the progression. So our current 11th graders, so the Keystone scores are banked until 11th grade. That's when they pull them out and count them for Future Ready. Even when students take it in the middle school, those scores are banked until that student hits 11th grade, and then it becomes part of Future Ready. So in looking at the timeline, you can see in 2019-20, that was the year we had no testing because everything was shut down. All of the students were given a non-numeric proficient score as long as they passed the course. So they weren't counted in. They're not part of the overall count. So the state has cautioned us about using this data or reacting to this too strongly because they also, across the state, have seen an artificial drop in Algebra 1 scores of about 29 to 30%. Because a large population of students who would have normally been counted in there are not in there. So we just have to remember low participation rate yields results that are not representative of the whole group performance. And we have to keep reminding ourselves because we want to kind of like, be concerned immediately when we look at those numbers. But we're remembering that piece. So they're banked. 40% of Algebra 1 cohorts have waivers across the state, to give you a sense of the enormity of the number of kids who had waivers across the state, 40% of our population. And then in 2021, the state made them tests optional, if you remember that. So lots of students didn't take it that year either. And then in 21-22 is when regular testing resumed, but those kids are not 11th graders yet. So we're going to continue to see some, lagging indicators of the pandemic. And it's not necessarily because their performance was low. It's because we had a lower number of students taking a different group of students taking the exams.
Thanks,
So it's just important to keep in mind. We had to write this all out to be able to figure that out. And we've figured it out.
That's really helpful. I think Stephen might have had a question for you about that.
So just as an extra note, I'm one of those 11th graders who opted out of that test, but I think the 11th graders who didn't take that test were largely the ones in the accelerated by a year or two amount. And so not only was it that a lot of students weren't taking it, but it was the typically more advanced students who typically perform better on those tests who weren't taking it, which would skew the data even further.
Correct. So low participation rates are not our whole.
That's a good observation. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Our final piece tonight is just our next steps. When you are visiting, I think in January, board visits start. All schools, once again, have created school comprehensive plans that are aligned to the previous Future Ready comprehensive plan. Of course, we're working through another one that is due in March. What they're doing is making that a working document, so they meet in teams and really it is used, and they're adding to it all of the time after data meetings to put in what they're focusing on and then what they're doing to meeting those goals. We added an instructional admin meeting once a month. So what we did is really eliminated a second, either elementary or middle or high school principal meeting, and then really focus on instruction, which includes professional development on culture, improving culture, and there's always a data piece with that. So we have taken them through some MAP, we're taking them through Future Ready, we're looking at things, and that's another step to make sure that everybody's focus is on aligned to our comprehensive planning goals. Every K-12 is still have the professional learning communities, or PLCs. And then for anybody new, we also have multi-tiered system of supports, academic core teams in every building that are really reviewing data at their schools, and then they're drilling clear down to the individual. So they're looking at the health of the classroom, but then they're also looking at what does this small group need down to the individual. Chris is working with the ELA committee. We are continuing to review the HMH Into Reading resource, aligning that to the structured literacy requirements of the state. and really beginning to review the next steps for, we only put math in here, but embedding writing. So remember, if you recall last year, we have to bring something forward to writing, and we're trying to make sure that's aligned to our ELA. But then also begin to look at, we've actually had bridges now. This is the 6th year, which is hard to believe. We still recognize that as a quality resource, but we are going to have to start that review process since we're in year 6. As we talked about, we're working with special education, and also really working towards inclusionary practices, exploring professional development to help both the classroom teacher and special ed. And then in elementary, we're exploring and hoping to implement a 30-minute daily intervention block where not only so that every student, our advanced students, are getting what they need and they can be advanced in that time so that they are growing, and our students who may need a little bit of extra support can get the small group skills that they need. So we will be exploring that throughout this year.
Okay. Could I add something to that too? Also for the gifted, I think that Jonathan is also looking at other factors to determine who belongs in gifted. So I think that's kind of next step too, to be included.
It's very exciting, and I am sure he will report, but he added a piece to this year's COGAT. We are looking to make sure that we are picking up twice exceptional, some refer to them as 2E students, and taking away the barriers of language or other masking factors so that we are making sure we are qualifying students that may not have ever made it through because of a barrier that the test that we are given, the assessment we were giving didn't account for that. And so yes, that he will be sharing that data, and we're seeing some very interesting results from that data. They just finished the COGAT in schools about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and cultural barriers is another one he's talked about. I was in the middle level, some work that he was doing towards some state requirements, and yeah, that was part of it too. Any other questions from board members? Dan, what? No, go ahead.
So I wanted to see if you know, when I was at a board meeting a few weeks ago, we talked about the MAP testing. And if a student's race or ethnicity was unknown, they were lumped in with the white students. Is it the same with this?
No.
No. Okay, that's good.
And we got that corrected.
Great.
How about that?
I love that.
And it's going to be retroactive from September. We can't, not last year's data, but
This year at least.
Chris worked to get that
Wonderful.
corrected, and in January, we will be able to somewhat disaggregate that.
That's great, because that clean data is going to be helpful
Yes.
down the road. Thank you.
Great. Steven?
So I just had a question about the last bit with the 30-minute daily intervention. Has there been any thought about potential ostracization? I know kindergartners are more aware than we think they are sometimes, and
Yeah,
what's
we
the difference
would.
between
What we would hope is it is just a time to really get. A lot of times people call it win time. I don't know if it, but what I need. So it is really just everybody gets to focus a little bit more and hone in on their skills, and we will have to. I completely understand what you are saying, but make sure during that time that people aren't feeling different because they might be getting a little bit something different. We typically differentiate in elementary. This will just be really honed in on those academic scores, but we will have to be cognizant of that fact because we do not want that to happen, and that's a great question.
Thanks. Dr. Buck?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys so much for doing this. Is there anything, the data that we see here is, how do teachers receive it?
So, I mean, right now this is old data. So the data that they're getting were kids they had maybe several years ago. So this isn't helpful instructionally per se, to know how to adjust my instruction tomorrow. This data isn't live enough. I don't have these same students tomorrow. It's helpful in looking at our curriculum, for example. Are we seeing trends that tell us, but we don't have to wait for Future Ready to see that. We get the early look at the data in June. So we can have some sense of that already. So how do they receive it? It's just data. It shouldn't be threatening or pointed at any person. It's pretty large data. I would say that it's helpful for them to know. Most people are pretty interested to see how we're doing compared to the state. And so most people are pretty surprised, actually, that we're so far above the state in many of the areas. The state average seems fairly low to people. So it's validating in that way.
Okay.
I will say, though, Peter, probably even 5 years ago, as you know, like there was very, very little emphasis placed on the PSSA, and everybody has their personal thoughts with it, and we were really focused on MAP, and we still are. Like, we really want to use that as a tool that teachers can use, and they can really go into MAP. They've been trained to go in and figure out their class and are their classes growing. But we have started to have more conversations around the PSSA data because this is how we are judged in the state of Pennsylvania, whether we like it or not. Every child in Pennsylvania is expected to take this assessment. So schools are looking at the Future Ready. Like Chris said, the school comp plans, they looked at the proficiency and determined where they needed to grow. But we're working with them if they want to have conversations with teachers. So we are having PVOS training for our principals to help them better understand it. PVOS is a complicated.
And what is PVOS?
PVOS is Pennsylvania Value Added Assessment System, and it's really what looks at the overall growth of a student, of a class, if there are enough people, of a school, of a district. And it helps, that is one of those pieces of the overall growth that Future Ready uses. So, but it's not to point out, like, we just keep stressing this is one piece of data.
Right.
So this is not judging you, but we are looking at the schools to say, how can we get better? And we want all schools to be hitting those targets to make sure that everybody is getting an equal education.
Okay. So my follow-up to that, though, is that you just said schools.
Schools.
So we had the Future Ready pulled up, and I was looking around, right? And so right now, you cannot find Delta in
You
there.
cannot.
No.
And so I'm not part of the Delta
We
conversation.
put
but
that on the slide.
Yeah, we cannot, because Delta is not considered a school.
Right.
All of Delta, wherever their home school is, so if I go to Delta, but I live in Park Forest Middle, my data is sitting with Park Forest Middle School in accordance to the state, because it doesn't have Delta doesn't have an AUN number, and you have to be a school to get that data.
But to go back to my first question, that fact does not impact instruction or the quality of instruction within Delta. The fact that the data that we're talking about here is not projected onto the Future Ready Index and as we're able to see it.
Right, it's in there, but it's within the middle schools or the high school.
It is.
It's embedded, yeah.
Yeah, those students are part of Future Ready.
Right. But what I think what I'm trying to get at here is that I would say, I'll just say, I don't think that the fact that the data isn't projected through the Future Ready Index is any actual indicator of the quality of instruction or lack of quality of instruction at Delta.
Within Future Ready. Where
Correct.
that was when we were talking about that a couple weeks ago. We will never really be able to tell their growth measures. We could drill down to their proficiency. We could pull the students that took the test from Delta, but when you calculate PVOT,
Right.
those calculations, you are correct. Unless it's a school, we won't have that.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask? So you said that the Future Ready is the data source that impacts the school comprehensive plan. So then how does that impact, is there a school program comprehensive plan for Delta, and how does that?
No. So we don't, again, because Delta doesn't have its own, like every school in the district has an AUN number. if they're considered a school. And so you can look at every elementary school, every middle school, but Delta doesn't have the building code, so their scores are in the other parts. So when Delta does their plan, they would need to look at what does the whole high school look like in terms of like biology, algebra 1, and ELA. Because it's not broken out for them to look at just their data set. They have to pull it out somehow in their own, but you can't do the drill down like you can in this tool. But we do have the proficiency rates that we can look at, but we don't get the rest of it.
And so does that challenge with the data impact the school comprehensive plan planning?
It can, I mean, I guess.
It doesn't have to, but okay.
It can, because there's going to be a percentage of your population, though, in the middle schools. I'll just say, for example, that they may be looking at attendance. I'm just going to throw out something. And they're doing a school-wide effort on attendance, but some of the students in their data set don't get that intervention or whatever they're trying. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the impact of the future ready data.
Yeah.
And I had actually asked a similar question when the update was the last time, and I asked John Downs, like, do you have a building plan? Because like it's not a formal comprehensive plan, but we call it a building plan. And he said yes, and he did share some of these standards because, of course, at the middle level they can hand pick out those who take PSSAs. For that, but to Chris's point, it is kind of complicated. Like, for example, my daughter's at the Delta High School, but she already took advanced biology at the regular high school, but there is a biology class offered at Delta. So it does make it a little hard if you were looking at the Keystone biology results. Some of those students may have taken it at State High, and some may have taken it at Delta. So there is a ton of complexity there in terms of interpreting results, even though they can, if they sat down and handpicked every result out for every Delta student. Yeah.
But we like to look overall at how we're doing and how we compare to the state. So that's what this tool is for.
Great. That's really involved. I really appreciate all the work into your presentation. Any last questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So at this time, we have an additional opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone present in person or joining us remotely that would like to make a public comment, please alert us. Sure, please. I think you know the drill. You'll have 3 minutes after you give us your name and information.
This should be quick. Paul McCormick, resident of the Highlands, teacher at Delta Middle. I'm thinking about Deb's comment from last week, or the November 20th meeting, where Deb was asking, is there any other data that allows us to track student performance? And I thought that was a particularly cogent question, particularly with the MAP test. As a teacher, and as a former math teacher, now a social studies teacher, the most important data that I could have as a math teacher is what I could get most quickly after the assessment. And so that MAP data I regard as valuable. And if I understood the conversation, is it that the MAP data will now accompany with it demographic data? If that's true, then it's actually, I think it is even more beneficial. So there is a way to track Delta's MAP data and have teachers act on that. Now, it's not necessarily what we see in PA Future Ready, but it is valuable to teachers, I would say. And Delta's MAP data actually surpasses the two middle schools that we've established that in our committee meetings. So I would just add that as a way that there are other assessment measures to track what's going on, and maybe even more valuable measures than the PSSA. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have anybody online, perhaps, that wants to make a comment? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to finally take a brief hiatus try to stick to 5 to 7 minutes or so, gang, so we can get everybody home tonight. So we'll be adjourned for a brief recess. Okay, I'm going to call back to order the December 4th, 2023 Committee of the Whole Board meeting of the State College Area School District, and we'll get onward with routine approvals. Is there a motion to approve the routine approval listing as presented on the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion on these items? Any public comment? Or is there nobody there? No, it's okay. Next time we'll have it open. Just double checking online if there's any public comment. No, all right, then we can have a roll call vote.
Yes. Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Dr. Buck? Yes. Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Okay, those items have passed. We'll move on to action items. Agenda item 8A is a motion to approve 2024-2025 academic calendar as shown in attachment 8A.
So moved.
Second.
You guys are snappy. All right, that's been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions or discussion on the academic calendar? And this was presented to us previously and discussed at a prior meeting. Okay. Any public comment on this item? No. So we'll have a roll call vote.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Dino?
Yes. So that motion is passed. Agenda item 8B is a motion to approve an amended agreement with Sinclair. This is shown in attachment 8B. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion on this item?
I have a question.
Yeah, Dr.
Deb has-
Oh, thank you. You can go to Carly first.
This amendment was brought up, I guess, because of the possibility that we may have kids from the outer districts that want to come. Do you know, just on the top of your head, because it's like 20 kids per classroom, so 40 total. Do you think that we will really need this amendment? I mean, I know you, just from,
So we have space at Grays Woods right now. And this was precipitated by a Penns Valley family who works in town wanting to have their child in our program.
I see.
And they understand that after they are done with the preschool portion, they'll obviously need to go back to Penns Valley or become a tuition-paying student here.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering how this amendment came up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, right, correct, or move.
Yeah, Deb.
I just wanted you to remind us who pays for the busing for the preschool students?
Sinclair,
Sinclair Play, okay.
they are
So-
not on our buses.
I didn't think so, but I just wanted to check to
Sure.
make sure. And so Sinclair is, obviously, since they're a party to this agreement, is going to provide busing for the out-of-district students, or?
No idea, I believe, well, I can't say for sure, but I believe that the families are going to be providing the
Okay.
transportation.
But it's not our responsibility?
It is not our responsibility,
Thank
and
you.
it will not be.
Thanks.
Good question. I didn't even know they received busing, so. Any additional questions? Okay. Seeing none, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Dino?
Yes.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
That item is passed. Agenda item 8C is a motion to approve the purchase of girls' wrestling uniforms as shown in attachment 8C. Do I have
So
a-
moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or discussion on this item?
Ooh, girls wrestling.
Yes, it's excellent. It's exciting to see they have so many already enrolled, so that's great. Yeah. Right, look there.
It's okay.
Missed you.
I'm not in a rush. I wanted to just check in. The memo states, if I can get it up here, that this is a cost for girls' wrestling uniforms and warm-ups. And when I look back at the information that we've been given in the past on what's usually provided to our athletes, the list does not list warm-ups for the boys wrestling team. And generally speaking, we don't provide practice jerseys. We just provide uniforms for most of our sports. I'm not opposed to it, especially as an emerging sport, because they probably don't have a booster club yet. And the booster club is who has traditionally taken care of the extras. But I wanted to ask about sort of plans for the future.
I will have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, as a new sport, and they probably don't have a booster club yet, and it's not that big of a cost.
Right.
I'm not opposed to it at this time, but I think it should be equitable across all the sports.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yeah, Stephen.
I know at least with track and field and all the cross country and all the running sports that they do provide warm-ups. So I think some of the bigger ones, since I think it's 200 of the 500 athletes do get warm-ups not associated with the booster club. So I think it is something that a lot of the bigger teams do have as well. And I'm pretty sure football is something similar.
I was going to say, because of the nature of the wrestling uniform, that the warm-up may be included, but you have obviously looked at the more detailed information more recently than I have. So we'll get back, we'll take a look at that and make sure that we're acting equitably and uniformly in the future.
And also, could I add, Stephen, one of the cross-country time when they did provide more, I think it was like a big donation from one family. I'm not sure if it's really done every year, but you could double-check on that.
Yeah. And if there is an update to the I'm not even sure I have this in an electronic form. I just keep pulling it out every time. So if we have an update to that, if there is a change, then it'd be great to have that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we can have a roll call vote.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Dr. Beck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Dino?
Yes.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Colby?
Yes.
That item is passed. Moving on to a motion, item agenda, it's after 10 o'clock. Agenda item 8D is a motion to grant permission to bid 2024-2025 capital projects and deferred maintenance, as shown in attachment 8D.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? We were presented a pretty thorough rundown from Mr. Fisher at our last meeting.
I did, but we have new members, so if you'd like me to go back down through it, I am happy to do so.
You have new members who were in attendance, so I think we're good. At least I am. Maybe. No.
Okay. Any other board members who have a follow-up question? Yeah, Debbie.
Just appreciation, as always, for the detailed memo that you always give us, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any public comment on this item? All right, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Dr. Huff?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Dino?
Yes.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
That item is passed. Moving on to agenda item 8E is a motion to approve a fire alarm system replacement change order for Mount Nittany Middle School. This is shown in attachment 8E.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? Okay. Any public comment? All right, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Dino?
Yes.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
That item is passed. Agenda item 8F is a motion to approve an agreement with Beyond the Gavel LLC for board professional development services. This is shown in attachment 8F.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion for this item? Dr.
I'm
Beck?
just very appreciative that we're going to be doing this. I think that it'll be really helpful for us in terms of procedure. So,
Yeah.
thank you, and thank you all for taking part in a week.
Yeah, I appreciate Jackie, making that connection and setting it up. That's really, I think especially with 3 new board members, it'll be really helpful and I've been here too long. A refresher will be really, really great. So I appreciate that.
Can we shoot for 3 hours on that, or does it post-
All right. Any public comment on this item? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Yes.
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 Yes. That item is passed. Agenda item 8G is a motion to approve a student agreement. There is no attachment for this item.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Any public comment on this item? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. We'll move on to future meetings. Look, we have December 18th is our next is our board conversation with the community, in addition to a community review of the Mount Nittany Elementary project design. That'll be at 5 p.m. in Panorama Village and Administration Center here in the boardroom. Additionally, following after, we'll have the regular board meeting at 7 p.m. in the same location. January 8th, 2024 will be a committee of the whole regular board meeting occurring at 7 p.m. here in the boardroom. January 16th, 2024 will be our next policy development committee meeting. It'll be held at noon in Panorama Village in the boardroom. And last, January 22nd will be a regular board meeting here at 7 p.m. in Panorama Village boardroom. I would now like to call for a motion to adjourn the meeting to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everyone. The meeting's adjourned.
Have a great night.